All right, here we go, everybody. Welcome to episode number 54 of Sports Cards Live. Wednesday, October the 14th. Happy to have you here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I do want to thank last Wednesday's guest was Ezra Levine, the CEO of the Collectible app, the fractional ownership company. That was a great conversation that we had. I also want to thank last Saturday's guest was Drew Herndon from Let Me Get That Potograph and Hobby Hotline. We had a great conversation. And then afterwards on the After Hours show, my guests were Karn Rai, who's one of my Pokemon experts, as well as Jeff Wolf, the president of Iconic Auctions, who the night before had sold the Pokemon Charizard Shadowless First Edition PSA 10 through his auction site for $220,000. Check out those episodes. They live on the YouTube channel along with all the others. This is episode 54, so you can find 53 older episodes in the archives on the YouTube channel. Please check those out. This coming Saturday, I've got Irving Minera, one of the old school group breakers, joining me, Mustache Breaks. And then next Wednesday, Jeff Wilson of Sports Card Investor will be joining me as well. I want to thank all new viewers. I want to thank Ryan, tonight's guest, for bringing new viewers and attention to the channel. Welcome to all of you. Thank you to all the subscribers. If you haven't yet subscribed, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would consider doing so. Also, stay tuned. At the end of this episode, we'll be going through the Sports Cards Live 5 and the PC Card of the Day. As always, your comments and questions are in play. So let's get to it. Tonight's guest, he discovered sports cards in 2001 after getting a start in Pokemon in 1999. By 2006, he was right into the hobby, and in 2013, he was right into the hobby. He eventually built up his reputation by being a top 10 trader on blowout forums. In 2013, when PhotoBucket started to charge, he turned to Instagram as a place to store his card scans, and with that, became one of the first people to use it for the hobby the way so many of us do today. He's grown it. He's grown it up to being 40,000 followers. He organizes Trade Night at the National, which had over 1,000 people attend in 2019. I was one of them. He opened his own store in May of 2019 in Grove City, Ohio. He's a fan of the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hailing from Columbus, Ohio, let's bring him out. Ryan Johnson, welcome to episode 54 of Sports Cards Live. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Good, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. It's great to have you. So listen, I'm going to jump right in, man. How in the world do you build your Instagram account up to 40,000 followers?
Good timing. Posting a lot. A lot of different things played into it. I've been doing this for a while. Like you said, 2013, it just kind of happened by accident, really. I just started using it as a place to post pictures where I could, show all the things I had for sale or for trade and use that to post on Blowout and, make deals. And then, sure enough, other people started following. Hashtags were big at the time. You could discover other content that way. And it continued to grow. And I had like 1,000 followers and I was like, man, a lot of people, like 1,000 followers, that's crazy. And then I started opening up my life a little bit more, right? In 2013, that was the year I met my wife. So right around that same time, we met and, I've been on here for 7 years. I showed, graduating high school or graduating college and getting engaged and getting dogs and getting married and just opening a store. And I've showed a lot of my life on there. So I think that was a big key that for me was just being someone that people could connect to and being personable and, more open. I do show a lot of my life on the app, but just good timing and posting a lot and just a lot of different things. But yeah, I've just been fortunate enough to continue to grow it.
So, one of the things that I've learned to do with this channel even is just let it grow sort of organically. And I think I suspect that that's sort of what you did with your Instagram account, in that, did you go out looking to build an account that had so many followers, or was it organic growth? And you mentioned you were sharing your personal life, and I think people like to see that. It helps you feel like you know the person on the other side. Yeah. But was it truly organic growth, or did you kind of set out you mentioned hashtags? Was there anything that was there a hashtag that really you found worked and then you kept on using it, or were you really just posting to share content and it just took off sort of on its own?
Yeah, so originally the goal was never to build an audience, right? It was just I just wanted to use it for free pictures. That's all it was originally for. And then as it started to take off, I got a lot more strategic about it, right? Like posting at a certain time, posting good quality photos, editing the photos with like higher saturation, light, things like that. Again, it became a lot more strategic. Using specific hashtags, tagging bigger accounts, so Panini, Upper Deck, some other people like that. So did a lot of that. In terms of like organic, obviously I've never paid for followers. I've done like giveaways. I guess that would kind of be the one thing that's like not truly organic because you've like tagged friends, things like that. That's a good way to grow. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it early on. Again, it was never intended to be as big as it was. I didn't set out and be like, hey, I want to hit 40,000 followers. That wasn't ever the goal. It was just, again, just continue to grow, and wherever we end up is wherever we end up.
And so, and how far into it did you find that, this is actually becoming a legitimate place for sports card collectors to hang out, socialize, build community, and share their photos of their cards and their lives? Like you were one of the pioneers. What year would you say did it really start to catch on?
2016 is like when I really noticed it. That was the first year they ever ran the Kentucky basketball cards ever ran trade night. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. That was like really like the first year. Yeah, there you go. That was like really the first year I was like, this is different. I was able to move like a lot of product. I got some wax boxes at a show and came back and razzed like 27 boxes on a Friday night. Right. And I wasn't expecting to I never intended to buy and sell in there on that volume. I was doing, $50, $100 trades and to move thousands of dollars in product at one night. I'm like, hey, this is like a serious play. Maybe this is like a real serious like platform for buying and selling. And then the trade night happened and people showed up to that. Like the first night we ever happened, and I've got pictures on my phone, there's like 5 people that showed up. Like, because when Jimmy first ran it, what most people don't know is it used to be 3 nights. So it used to be a Thursday night, a Friday night, and a Saturday night. Saturday night, Jimmy and I would go to the Panini VIP party, so we never attended. But like Thursday night and Friday night, but it was open all 3 nights. It had food, snacks, trading, all sorts of things. But the first night we ever ran it, the Thursday in Atlantic City, like 5 people showed up for the first half hour. Like nobody showed up. No one. It was empty. And to see it evolve to what it is now, it's kind of cool. But like by the third night there, or second or third night there, it had a couple hundred people there. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, it's probably been a couple years since I really realized that this had like serious potential.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So I just want to tell you a quick story. When you started advertising the 2019 trade night for the National on Instagram, I got right wrapped up in it because this was perfect for me. I go to the National. I want more card action. When the night's done,
Yeah.
I can just keep on looking at cards, trading cards, talking to other card guys and gals, and enjoying the hobby. So I was super pumped up for it. So you mentioned, you had a picture of the first the year in Atlantic City. And then you guys did it in Cleveland the next year, where it grew a little. It grew substantially, actually, from year 1 to year 2 in Cleveland. Did it not?
So it didn't actually go Chicago. It actually didn't go Atlantic City to Cleveland. So Jimmy ran it the first 2 years. So like it was Atlantic City to Chicago, and in Chicago is in this little hotel room. It was probably 500 square feet. It was tiny, and it was packed. It was busy for sure. Again, 3 nights, same thing, and then Jimmy got a job where he was unable to attend the trade night and was like, hey, you've helped me run this the last couple of years. I want you to take this over. I can't be there. And then that was the first year I ran it in Cleveland. That was year 3. And that was at like a community center. And it was a pretty good size. We had a good amount of people turned out. And then it went back to Chicago. The advantage to Chicago, though, like logistically, is you just walk out of the convention center and walked right into the trade night, right? Like they were connected. You don't have to walk outside. It just, you leave and you walk right in. It was smooth. In Cleveland, there's not that option. You had to drive. So that kind of limited it, and it wasn't as big as it was now. So that played a role into it, but yeah, Chicago was wild.
In 2019. Yeah. I seem to remember you posting the pictures of the Cleveland one where it was like maybe 300 people or so. Does that ring a bell? And then Chicago, you didn't really know what to expect. But you were expecting more, and you went pretty far. Like you put out some money to book the room and bring in some beverages and some snacks and all that. And so I do have some pictures because I was there. So, and I took a couple of pictures. So I thought I want to share them because one of the things I like to do on the show is really promote the hobby, promote the events. And aside from promoting all the card shows that I love to attend, to me, trade night it's just what we need. It's perfect. It's a perfect complement to the show. So I'm going to throw this up. This here, guys, this is a picture of the lineup to get into the trade night in Chicago. The door was in this area over here, and people were just waiting in line to get in because people, like you said, just like Ryan said, you'd walk out the back door of the National and right across to the hotel, and there it is. This is in one of the hotels and in one of the banquet halls. So there's this picture here. I'll show also. That's me and you, Ryan. That's us at the show, but at trade night. But then I have this little video that I posted, and I think you actually saw this, and I sent this.
Yeah, I use this video a lot. This video is awesome.
You use this. So this is my original video. I'll just play it quickly. It's 30 seconds. And what this is, everybody who's watching, this is me standing in the middle of the trade night room and just doing a 360 with the camera. So there's a little bit of sound, and it's only 34 seconds. Just to get an idea of how big this was. So yeah, just to give everybody who's watching an idea, that was the event that Ryan organized, and I was there for, I don't know, an hour and a half or so. And what I loved about it was, as you saw, tons of tables. I think you estimated there were 1,100 people that came in or out throughout the night. There were some prize bags available at the beginning for the first however many people. And but really, what was awesome was there were people sitting around all these tables, and you could just go around and talk to them and look at cards and show cards. And it was a legit trade night. It was awesome. And I can only imagine what the next one is going to look like, considering how crazy the hobby has gotten since then. So anyway, Ryan, thanks for doing that. It's a great event. And like I said, it's a great compliment to the National itself. So before unless you want to jump in with something.
Again, I certainly don't want to take all the credit for it. Jimmy was the mastermind behind this originally. And I think that speaks, I know we're going to talk about it later, but it really speaks to the community aspect of this. This was meant to be a place where everybody that you interact with on a daily basis on Instagram can go meet up, put, names to faces, hang out, trade, and feel comfortable that the people there you're trading with are going to be good people. But also there were a lot of sponsors in that. And I think that's key here, that this wasn't just strictly Ryan fronting the bill on a very expensive purchase. We had a lot of people commit to this. There were, again, I know you, like you said, you donated to this. We set up a GoFundMe, and we had some bigger sponsors. There were a lot of people in this. So again, I really want to give credit, but yeah, it was awesome. I cannot wait to run hopefully one in 2021, but yeah, it quickly became way bigger than we ever expected, but it's a blast to run, and I look forward to it every year.
Yeah, no, man, same here now for sure. So can't wait for the next one. Now, before we move on, I do want to welcome everyone to the show that we have watching and in the comments. Ernie, welcome as always. Good to see you. Jordan, how is it going? Sam, where's your hat? I'm still working on that, buddy. I got him. I'm still working on what to do with him, but good evening to you, Sam. Paul, good evening. Happy Gretzky first NHL goal anniversary. Thank you very much. Peter, great to have you with us. Matt, welcome to the show. Yes, I've been looking forward to tonight's interview as well. Simon, hi, Jeremy. Welcome to the live lounge, Ryan. There you go, Ryan. Terry, welcome to you. Andy, good to see you again. Been a while. Welcome back. Amish Dave Archer, good to see you. How are you tonight? Anonymous Facebook user, welcome to the show. Ryan is a great follow on Instagram. Yeah, there's no doubt about it, guys. 40,000 people already think so. If you're not following him, which I'm sure you are, but if by chance you aren't, on the ticker right now is his handle at Card Collector 2. Name, welcome to the show. Loves the Instagram page, Ryan. Absolute. Good evening to you. Lots of comments rolling in. Frankie, welcome to the show, my man. Great to have you. Absolute. Good evening. Big D, good evening to you. Legion, what's happening, everybody? We're chilling. We're going to have a great conversation here. Carlos, welcome to the show. I get caught up. And now Jeremy's vlogging. Good times. Welcome back, Carlos. Steve, good evening to you. Jake, 90s B-ball cards. Guys, a lot of these people have channels on YouTube, just like myself. Check them out. There's so much great content coming out these days. Ryan has a great YouTube channel as well. Check them, check everything out. But here we go. We got Thomas in the house. Welcome, Thomas. Where's the Kush at? Ziggy, good evening to you. Dunkachino. Welcome to the show. Dominic, welcome. Jordan Hagedorn says, Ryan, thanks for being one of the good dudes in the industry. Can you talk about how we grow the hobby as a whole? And do you see yourself being at the forefront of that growth? Ryan, what do you have to say to that?
So how can we grow the hobby as a whole? I think one of the biggest things, I saw this the other day on Twitter, and I think it's important to address that, like, if we want to grow the hobby, I think we have to be super open to new people getting into the hobby. I saw something the other day. I'm not going to go too much into details, but basically a newer person in the hobby had said something, their thoughts about grading. And there were some people that had been in the hobby a minute that had completely had just no, that's absolutely crazy. I can't imagine why you'd say it. Just completely shutting it down. And I think that's the big thing is if we want new people to get into the hobby and enjoy it, we have to be open to that, right? Not everybody knows what we know, right? We've been in this a while. We enjoy this, but there are other people that want to enjoy this with us as well. People that used to collect, right? That was big. When COVID happened, you had people at home with nothing to do, nowhere to go, nowhere to spend money. And they're like, hey, let's pick up an old hobby, trading cards. But if we get people in, the biggest thing we can do is educate people, right? There's a lot of free resources out there, a lot of content. That's why I think social media is so big, is it's free, right? You can go on YouTube, you can go on Instagram, you can go on Twitter, you can go on Facebook, you can go on TikTok. You can go on all these apps and learn everything you want to know about the hobby. There are websites out there that are free. I know Cardboard Chronicles Josh has a website that is free. There's a lot of tools out there that are free. So I think that's a big thing is if we want the hobby to grow, we have to educate people about what we know. And just being open to new people, right? They have different ideas than we do. They might do things differently, but just being open to new people coming in is the big one. I'm not sure I see myself at the forefront of that growth. Yeah, I'm not super big on talking about myself. So there's like I said, there's a lot of big people in this hobby that I think are bringing new eyeballs to this. But I think the big thing is just if we can be open and educate new faces, I think that's gonna help sustainability and help people want to stay around. Because we talked about this on my podcast the other day on Card Talk, that if new people get into the hobby and buy cards, because people are saying that these values are this and they're not even realistic. We talked about this with Pokemon. If somebody gets hosed in the first month they get in this and they spend $1,000 on a card that's worth $600, those people aren't going to want to stick around. They're going to be like, well, this isn't a business I want to be a part of. So I think that's big is really the education aspect of it.
I agree with all that, Ryan. I'll add too, you mentioned that there's other people that are bringing attention to the hobby, bigger influencers, some celebrities and that sort of thing. And it's almost like, they're the scouts out there. They're the ones finding a lot of this new blood, if you will, these new entrants. But I think once those people get into the hobby and they start to poke around on whatever platform they're on that they were brought in through, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whichever it is, and they start finding other collector accounts, maybe more experienced collectors, being you and me, Ryan, and the audience, I think it's then on us to help really nurture them and treat them, number one, as if we're welcoming them into our hobby. It's their hobby too. So welcome to the hobby, and help them understand some of the intricacies of it. If they have questions, like you said, don't pounce on them. Respond in a respectful manner. We don't know who's on the other side unless you see a picture of them. But for the most part, it's let these bigger influencers bring people in, and then the hobby itself can take care of them. I think that's a good strategy to help grow it. And it's events too. Like Ryan, you said, even the trade night, to me, it's not necessarily going to bring in more people. You're already at the national, let's say, but it's, I walked around that room and there were little clusters of people, and some tables I kind of walked by, I didn't, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't sit down. And some were like, hey, come on, sit down and join us. So it's really how open-minded we are to other people and how welcoming we are, I think is a great way to grow the hobby. Thanks, Jordan, for the question. Let's keep on running through these, Ryan. Jeff McMahon, happy to have you. Looking forward to the show as well. Daniel, lots on the agenda. We are going to be talking. We got a lot of state of the hobby issues to talk about. We'll get there. Colin Murray, welcome to you. Peter and Ryan has a great podcast as well. Yes, the podcast is called Card Talk. It's on the 1:37 p.m. YouTube channel. Check that out, guys. I've listened to a few of them and very enjoyable. He's Ryan, you're one of 3 guys on your podcast. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it's been going for a couple weeks now. It's about 14 weeks in, and it's essentially what we've tried to do is give different perspectives in terms of people that have been in the hobby for different periods of time. So me kind of being the quote unquote expert on the podcast. And then we have Lou, who's been in the hobby for, 3 to 4 years. And then we have Tyler, who's new to the hobby within like the last 12 to 18 months. So just try to give, different perspectives from people that have been in it for different periods of time and bring all their ideas to one, and then just talk about different things in the hobby. So it's been enjoyable. I love it.
That's a great kind of panel, the different levels of experience, because it's nice to see someone new and how they're perceiving the hobby. It brings up Pokemon for myself, Ryan. I have not been into Pokemon until around July of this year when I dipped my toes in for the first time.
Yeah.
But on my after hour show on Saturday, as I mentioned in the opener, I had on a guy that I consider to be a Pokemon expert, and Jeff Wolf, who's the president of Iconic Auctions. And it was a bit of a learning exercise for myself, because I felt a little bit like a fish out of water, and that I understand sports cards. I've been doing sports cards for 40 years. I know them inside and out, but Pokemon's brand new to me. But something about it, the hype, I'll admit it, the hype helps, but there's just something nice about something alternative. And so, as someone new to that part of that, like that segment of this cardboard hobby, I found people to be very welcoming. I'm fortunate that a lot of people that I'm reaching out to already know me, and, they're friends, they're hobby friends, and they happen to know Pokemon. But people in the Pokemon hobby are very welcoming, is what I've noticed so far. So yeah, a little bit of an analogy there I just wanted to mention. Benjamin Carroll, welcome to the show, wants to know, what are you picking up, Ryan? We'll save that for a little while, come back to that down the road in the show. We got other things to get to right now, but thanks, Benjamin, for the question. This anonymous user says, definitely agree with Ryan. Tons of elitism around, especially on Facebook. And I think that just speaks to hobbyists and veteran hobbyists are very protective of this hobby. And I think that that's short-sighted in nature. And we as veterans, those that are in the audience and myself and others, we need to kind of tone that down a little bit and nurture the hobby, especially when it comes to younger people, because they are the future. If our cards are going to have values, generationally, we need young people to remain in the hobby. I'll make a comment about that later, Ryan, that I've mentioned before. That is one of my strategies there. Thomas Newman says, Card Ladder, being Josh from Cardboard Chronicles and Chris from House of Jordan's website, isn't free. No, it's a service, so it is not free.
Jeremy, I want to say Josh has a website. It's howtocollect.com. It's a different website than Card Ladder. He is a part of Card Ladder, but that's not the website I was referring to.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying. What else? Let's see. Brian Pepperdine, welcome to the show. Nothing shows off Ryan's influence more than him single-handedly getting half his hobby to go to a car wash.
That's probably
is that I've seen something on that, Ryan? What is it? Just explain it to me quick.
I just post random things, right? I'm super open about my life. So I'll go to the car wash and post a picture, and other people tagged me, and it just kind of took off. So every time I go to the car wash, I take a picture, and 3 times a day, somebody goes to the car wash and tags me, and I repost it. And it's funny. I don't know how it started other than me just posting pictures of me going to the car wash. I'm not sure. It was unintentional.
Sort of like an ice bucket challenge type.
Yeah,
of thing,
it's interesting.
Funny, fun. It's funny how things catch on, right? People like that. It's fun, man. Mike says, I came back to the hobby because of Otani. I started my website because of you, Ryan. You've been a huge inspiration. That's really nice, Mike, to say. Jordan says, well said to what you said earlier. Thank you, Jordan. Dave, how do we grow the hobby? Consume free knowledge from all corners of the collecting world. There's so much great content out there now. I have to agree with that. McDoyle Sports, welcome to the show. Daniel says, how are you planning to educate people on that? Unfortunately, I don't know what that was at this point, Daniel, but if you want to clarify, we'll definitely come back to it. Ziggy tells us that Ben Baller, who is one of the Tops Project 2020 artists, was on Beckett Live tonight. Great stuff. More growth is good. Yeah, I actually caught a bit of that, and that was really interesting. What Jordan says, I think recruiting new people to the hobby is something for us to think about. A lot of people have had bad experiences in the past. Can we help bring them joy to start and help them find their way? That I think that's something that we should all be working towards. And Ryan, you have a card shop, so you must have fresh people, newbies coming in every so often saying, I've heard about this, I've heard what's going on. How do you, number one, is that happening in your shop? And number two, how do you take that opportunity to convert them into a collector and a hobbyist?
That's a really good question. Yes, every day. For sure. It's very, very frequent, a lot more than when I first started a year ago, right? Like, I know others will disagree on this. We had Gary Vee on the podcast and I disagreed with Gary wholeheartedly on this, that like COVID was really big for our business, right? It brought a lot of new attention, I believe. And I see it every day when we have people come in, they're like, hey, I used to collect cards back in the 90s. I have my old sports cards. Didn't realize they were worth money. Didn't realize you could pull, $50,000 cards or $1.8 million LeBrons or things like that. And I think that's the big thing now is it seems like a lot of the attention again, just on a daily basis, when I see it, a lot of the attention that's brought into the hobby, like I think people are attracted by the money to get in, but I think educating them on like, hey, there's more of a hobby here. This is a community. There's a lot you can do with this. We talked about that before, where you could go down, you could be a grader, you could go to shows, you could, do eBay, you could do retail arbitrage, you could build a website, you could be a breaker. There's a lot of different things you can do in the hobby. So again, I think that's big, is when you get someone new, just kind of, showing them the different things that go on within the hobby, showing them the social media aspect of it, there's just a lot that goes into it. So that's just the biggest thing, is anytime I see somebody new, I can't, it's impossible to explain to somebody like, hey, explain to me what sports cards are and what it's like in 5 minutes. It's not really something you could do. So that's why I always encourage people when they come in, like, hey, if you're interested in getting to the hobby, like, where's the best place to start? Social media. Right? If you go on YouTube and you go on Instagram or you go on Twitter and you follow 20 people on each platform, you could learn a lot. Yet alone if you follow 100 people. So the biggest thing is like, yeah, we see it. I just think, again, it just goes back to education. There's a lot of different ways to get informed, but you can't explain that to somebody in a 5-minute conversation in shop.
I'm gonna throw into this as well, Ryan. A little bit of a different angle, but I said earlier, kids are obviously the future. Young people are the future of the world, never mind the hobby. One thing that I've done, I've mentioned it before on this show, but we have a lot of new viewers tonight, so I'll mention it again, is Halloween's right around the corner here. And what I've done for years now is I'll put together 10 common cards, put them in a little team bag, and give those to kids when they come to my house. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm also giving them chocolate bars and Smarties and some candies too. But I'm giving them hockey cards. I'm in Canada, I'm in Calgary, so I'll give them hockey cards, the odd baseball card, football, basketball too as well. But most kids around here like the hockey, so I'll put that in there. And several years ago, my old house became known as the hockey card house in the neighborhood, and I was very happy about that because I want to spread the joy. And kids love getting even the girls would want them too. So that's a great kind of way to spread the love and bring in some new young people, give them a taste and see if they take to it. There's a lot of competing, things out there for young people's attention, but we love cards, right, Ryan? And there's something about them. I don't know what it is. I know you had Chris McGill from House Jordans on your show, and he said, I heard him say, and he said it a couple times, that cards make his life better. It's really as simple as that. And that's really what it comes down to. If you think cards can make your life better, more enjoyable, jump in. You know, they sure did it for me. I mean, I'm a lifer. You're a lifer, right? It's just the way it is. So, all right, the comments are coming in fast and furious, guys. I always say that your comments and questions are in play. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep up tonight, so I'm gonna keep scanning them, everybody. But we're gonna move on to some topics here, because we want to hear the knowledge that Ryan has to share. So let's jump into our state of the hobby discussion. I've got about 8 or 9 bullet points under this. The first one is probably the most timely and relevant. It's got to do with LeBron James. He won his 4th championship a few days ago. And I had this discussion on a recent episode, but I like to hear, it's funny. As content creators, Ryan, we often talk about the same things over and over again, but with different people. And I think that's okay because different people have different perspectives, and I want to bring as many as I can to myself and my audience. So he won the championship. We saw the run-up of cards over the summer, and his Topps Chrome PSA 10, as an example, was selling for around $15,000. It's come down a little bit. Was that 4th championship already built into the pricing? Is the market efficient enough to build that in prior to him winning?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think you saw like how good LeBron was and how good they looked with AD earlier this year. So I think the expectation was at some point LeBron is going to win in LA. But so much of LeBron's prices aren't like, I don't think they're built into like what he's going to do. I think it's already built into what he has done, right? Like you can't take away 10 finals. You can't take away 3 championships. You can't take away 3 finals MVPs. You can't take away all of the stats LeBron's already done. That's why I think LeBron sells for what he sells for, is like some of these guys sell for a lot of money now and they haven't done anything. LeBron's at least safer in that aspect. And I think a lot of that is built in because he's already accomplished those things. They're not like what he could be or what he may do. It's just, I mean, it's already what he's done.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion, Ryan, is just that it's that, yes, that was already sort of baked into the price. And then when he wins a championship, the season's over, then it's kind of like a shock in a way. The hype is over, the excitement is over, the hope, the expectation, it's been fulfilled now. Yep. So what's next? Have you noticed any change in the value of his cards since the championship?
I honestly haven't looked a lot, but the one thing I do remember is when this happened with Mahomes recently. So like if you noticed around like the Super Bowl, Mahomes Prism Silvers like dipped a little bit post Super Bowl, right? It's like, okay, Mahomes got there. He got over the hump of the AFC title, went to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, right? So Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl win, NFL MVP. He's already done so much, but they kind of dipped. So it was like, hey, cool, he got there and he won. Yay, cool. But what's next? And then they shot up when people were like, hey, man, maybe this kid is really the real deal. He's already been to 2 straight AFC titles. He's won a Super Bowl. Again, all those stats. And maybe he is really a big deal. So it seems like once you hit it, it doesn't seem like it's like I remember when I was growing up, I remember when like Santonio Holmes won Super Bowl MVP for the Steelers and his stuff exploded the next day. It seems like now if somebody wins, it doesn't really just like quadruple or double their prices because it's already built in. Like it used to be different, right? When these guys won major things like that, it really added a lot of value to their cards. Now it seems like it's not as dramatic when someone wins. And again, it may not even be extremely positive when they win, but eventually I think those things will continue to rise.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this topic of discussion to me, Ryan, is that, and you said it already, LeBron James, if we're talking about investing in sports cards and, anytime we're spending significant dollars on a sports card, whether it's for your hobby, your collection, or your investment portfolio within sports cards, and I know it's all pretty much the same thing right now anyway, unless we're collecting base sets and that. But, it seems to me like somebody who's done something, they have a resume, they're iconic, they're legendary, they've got championships, a guaranteed Hall of Famer, that helps. We're seeing guys like that selling at the same prices as some of the biggest prospects in the game or young people in the game. So when cards of players like Luka, who I know is an amazing player, and all these other young guys, even Giannis, who hasn't won yet, and his cards are selling for so much money. How can we navigate this? How can we navigate it and not get caught up in it? And like, should we be buying LeBron cards, or should we be buying Luka and Giannis cards? It's obviously a loaded question, because I know which way I lean, but I see a lot of the new people that are coming to the hobby with dollar signs in their eyes, which again is fine. If that's your approach, welcome to the hobby. Going for a lot of these newer players, a lot of the 2018, 19 rookies, the Zions as well.
Yep.
Do people come into your store and say to you, oh, I need a new Zion rookie? And do you ever counsel them? Do they ask for advice, and do you counsel them away from the who's hot today, the flavor of the week, or the flavor of the month or season even, and help guide them towards more solid investments if they're not really into collecting a certain player, like because they love this player?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like pushing. Again, I'm going to be transparent. I'm not everybody that comes in and but hey, do you have Zion? I'm like, dude, you don't want that guy. He's terrible. Like, I'm not. We're not saying that. Again, Zion could be good, right? Like, it's not impossible. He's had high school games filmed since he was he's had games filmed and on TV since he was in 8th grade, right? There's a lot of hype around this. I just think so much of the market now is around FOMO, right? You don't want to miss out on the next guy, so you buy everybody. Everybody sells, right? That's the problem, is like we go into the season this year and Drew Lock sells, and Dwayne Haskins sells, and Gardner Minshew sells, and Daniel Jones sells, and Kyler Murray sells. Every quarterback from 2019 sells well. We're selling well. The problem is when's the last time you had 5 quarterbacks from one class be really, really good? Hall of Fame potential or continuous Pro Bowlers. Like, when was the last time that happened? What has it? It doesn't. History will tell us that not everybody can be good. So we buy everybody like they're going to be good, but that's the problem, is they're not. So would I rather buy LeBron or Luka or Giannis? I'd rather buy LeBron, right? Because he's accomplished things and you can't take those away. If Luka's amazing and Luka becomes a top 5 basketball player of all time, that's awesome. He's got a lot of cards. You could still buy them 15 years from now, right? Like, they're gonna be available. It's not like there's a lot more Luka stuff than there is LeBron stuff. So 15 years from now, if Luka's the 3rd best player of all time, if that's what happens in his career, and that's what a lot of people think, you'll be able to buy Luka cards. They'll be good. You have a lot more to lose if he's not good.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of look at this at this point. Again, that's if you're in it for long term, right? If you're buying something and you don't want to ever resell it. If your goal is to buy something for 15 years, I lean that way. Sure, could you make money right now buying Luka stuff? Absolutely. Right? This is the off season. This is the time to buy these things. When basketball gets ready to start up, one of the best young prospects in the league, Luka Doncic, is going to sell well before the season starts. This isn't new. Like, if you've been in the hobby a minute, this is cyclical, right? Like, cards sell well when the off season happens, season gets ready to start up, guys sell well, and it just repeats itself.
For sure. So if you take the approach where you're going into a current year and you're saying, listen, I'm going to pick up, a PSA 10 or a BGS 9.5 rookie card of all the great players from this rookie year. And they're all going to be inflated in price because they're rookies and they're hot and there's a lot of hope and a lot of expectation built into their pricing. And, you're going to buy one of each, and whatever you spend, if you fast forward 10, 20 years from that point in time, how many of those players are actually going to be worthy of your collection at that point? And like you said, 5 potential Hall of Famers from a single rookie class in any sport it doesn't happen very often. It does happen, but it doesn't happen very often. And so, what I'm trying to get at with this whole discussion, really, Ryan, is we see a lot of new people coming in, and they're so focused on the short term. And again, it's okay to be a flipper, like a day trader, if you will. I'm not that person. I'm a long-term investor in the hobby. I've got my cards from when I was a kid in the 80s still, and I've collected all the way through. So I don't buy something with the intention to flip it right away. So it's harder for me to get into that mindset of the short-term flip approach. But I think because I don't, I'm really protecting myself from a lot of downside. And this brings me back to the point where a lot of the new people, and you said it earlier, they're coming in. If they're having a bad experience with their first or second transaction in the hobby, we may lose them forever. to the hobby, because who wants to come back, right? You can buy a card for $5,000. It goes down 50%. It's $2,500. You sell it, take the loss, and I'm done with that sports card hobby. But if you're buying players that you really feel are Hall of Fame worthy, there's something different about them. Like Lucas does seem to be that way. I think it's too early to tell on Zion. We haven't seen enough from him to know if he's going to hold up.
Sure.
But, I caution new collectors to kind of don't be so excited by the short-term flip, because to short-term flip, you have to be very reactive and you have to move very quickly. If you buy a card of a player, and you're going to invest a few $1,000 or a few $100, whatever it is, and you're going to take the approach of, I'm going to hold this for a long time, I think you're going to be much better off in the long run, unless you get really lucky along the way and flip, which does work if you're setting up at shows and you have that outlet. But if you're sitting at home, it can be tough sometimes to get things up on eBay on a regular and consistent basis.
And again, I said it earlier, like, 15 years from now, if you want Luka, you can buy Luka, right? Like, if Luka turns out to be a top 3 basketball player of all time, his better stuff is not going to be readily available, right? Like, his national treasures aren't going to be 15 a day on eBay. Like, those cards aren't even available now. So if you truly believe Luka Doncic is the 3rd best basketball player of all time, great, grab one. I'm just saying, I think there's just more risk in buying guys that have not accomplished those things if you're intending to hold forever. So
100%. All you need to do is look back in an old Beckett and see who's worth anything from the 80s and the 90s even, or even go back to the 70s and 80s. There's only a couple guys each year that are worth anything. In some years, there's nobody, depending on sport, depending on year. But some years, there's just no good rookie cards left. Some there's 1, 2, or 3, or 4. You barely get over that number. So when you see a year come along recently where there's 15 guys that people are clamoring for and spending big money on, I believe a lot of it is hype and excitement, and the fact that there's so many new people in the hobby, and maybe they like these players, they're on their team, and that's okay. But I just hope, for the sake of the people that are holding them long term, that those players do turn into being kind of worthy of that investment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just going to throw a comment up. Card Insights, welcome to the show. Ryan is one of the best hobby ambassadors. His positivity is very much appreciated in the community. Very nice, Card Insights. Love your Instagram account, which is now Card Insights 2, I believe.
Yep.
Don't forget that, everybody. Global Sports Card Investor says, totally agree with your thoughts with social media and Facebook groups. Yep, can't disagree with that. Jordan says, Jeremy, your Halloween idea is generous and a great way to get young people going. Getting cards into people's hands can be a huge spark. Thanks, General. Yeah, I really want to stress that to everybody watching. If you have kids that come by your door on Halloween, find a way to give them a little pack of cards on a contactless delivery sort of basis, right? Adam says, I wish people gave me hockey cards for Halloween. So do I. And back then they could have. They were 20 cents a pack, right? For sure they could have been. Andy says, funny about giving out cards at Halloween, I give out comics. I'm known as the comic book house. That's cool too. I mean, I'm for all these hobbies, right? They're all a lot of fun. Jake says, I donate a lot of comments I donate a lot of the comments I pull on my channel to a local center to rehabilitate minors that were arrested, right? Just the generosity is great, and it's so important, and it's going to help grow our hobby and make it keep it lasting, right? We love this thing, so we got to nurture it as much as we can. It's our responsibility as hobbyists. Hello to you, JPogs12. Welcome to the show. Ziggy says, people making a living off cards are like living a life they love. It's still a hobby for me on the side. Yeah, I mean, making a living on the hobby isn't for everybody, but it's a side hustle for a lot of people. I'm a guy that I have a day job. I go to work. I have a career. I go to work every day, but I go to card shows. I buy and sell collections. I love it. And Ryan, you might find this interesting. I started setting up at card shows for the first time in 2005 because I was going to card shows all the time and I wanted somewhere to sit down. What a better way than to have a booth, and now you're on the other side and you can get, just like you with your card shop, almost like it's just somewhere to park yourself within the hobby. And obviously you made a large commitment to you and your family by taking the entrepreneurial venture. Let's talk a bit about that right now, actually. What's it been like for you to go from being a collector to a hobby entrepreneur and buying and opening your store?
Certainly one of the most nerve-wracking decisions I ever made. giving up certainty and guaranteed paychecks and health insurance and benefits and paid time off. And that, I mean, it was certainly risky. But yeah, it's been a blast, right? I've said it before. When Instagram really started to take off for us, I enjoy this so much. I don't ever work a day in my life, right? I get up every day and buy and sell sports cards and meet, talk to great people, and I just enjoy it. Like there's nothing bad to say about it. It's a blast. So I told my wife, like, hey, this Instagram thing is really working out. Like, I'm buying and selling a ton. We were doing group breaks and PSA and all these different things. And I was like, I don't want to wait until I'm 60 to see if, hey, I wish I would have taken this chance, right? Like, let me see if this is going to work. If it doesn't, I have a college education to fall back on. We'll go our separate, we'll go that route later. But I'm young. We don't have kids. We didn't have a mortgage. Like, let's see what happens. And like I said, I quit my job. I actually told my wife, we had this discussion before we went on our honeymoon, and I didn't come back after the honeymoon. That's when I started. So October of 18. And then again, you and I've talked before offline, but Card Shop got offered to me about 8 months later off a whim, and turned into what it was. So yeah, it's been crazy. Like I said, I love it, but every day is different. Yeah, it's different.
Well, one thing I've noticed, and I'll give you a shout out to a couple of videos you have on your YouTube channel, which are basically a day in the life of a card shop owner. I think you've got 2 of the volumes out so far, or the episodes, and the 3rd one is coming. I watched them, and I can tell you, I had a card shop myself from 1991 to 1994, and I watched your videos, and boy, things sure have changed from being a card shop owner in the early 90s to where they are today. And I want to mention anybody out there, like, if you have a dream of opening a card shop, and I saw a lot of people comment even today on Instagram and Facebook saying, Ryan's living out my dream of owning a card shop. Well, check out these videos on his channel. They're pretty interesting. It's basically morning to night, what life is like for him. And you even mentioned, I found it really interesting, Ryan, that you mentioned that Monday is your busiest day. You're not even open to the public on Mondays, but that's the day that you and your employees are the busiest.
All time.
Can you explain why Monday is so busy for you at the shop?
Yeah, just Monday is the day we have to get so much accomplished because we're not committed to 6 hours of being open or 5 hours of being open. So like during the week, we're open Tuesday through Friday or Tuesday through Sunday. So Tuesday through Friday, 12 to 6, Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 5. So like on those days, like there's a commitment to be there, right? So I have an employee, his name's Dustin. He helps run the shop. So if I have to run an errand, or I have to travel to Houston to pick up a card lot, or do different things, he helps me with that. But if a customer comes in, like, I'll go over there and we'll work out a deal, things like that. So we're committed to those 6 hours. On Monday, we have to accomplish everything that we can't accomplish during those 12 hours. So when people are there, it's harder to get things priced, right? You want to talk to customers, you want to interact, help customers, things like that. So I can't sit down and price cards. We do grading submissions, so I have to get cards sent off. I have to get cards entered. It's just, so much goes on to it. We reorder product. We make boxes for the week. So like our 400 count, 800 count, 1600 count, the cardboard boxes. We stock the shelf, clean the shop. Just so much goes on those days. I have my podcast is on those days. So there's just a lot that happens. Mondays, like I said, is by far our busiest day.
Yeah. Well, it was awesome. I just like that you're not just doing the basic stuff, buying and selling wax and singles. You're doing some other things to extend your reach and serve your customers. The PSA grading submissions, that's something that I'd love to be able to drop off locally and have someone ship off for me. So, good on you for really exploiting this opportunity for all you can. It seems like you're not leaving any stones untouched. From the videos I've watched and talking to you, you seem to be a real go-getter, and that's really it's inspiring. So great work on that. Keep it up. I want to say hello to Dustin, the personal finance dad. Welcome to the show, Dustin. And I want to point out here as well, Ziggy says he does boys and girls clubs, donates tons of base LeBrons because kids are always excited to get them. And then Name Indigenous Rookie Card says, take the cards to a teacher or a school principal. I used to give hockey cards to kids at my old school as a reward for acts of kindness or other good deeds. The kids loved it. it's another good idea to get cards out there into schools. If I think I know Name is a teacher or principal, so if that's something that the principal of the school in your neighborhood is willing to take a few minutes, stop by there, just walk to the office and say, hey, here's something I'd like to do for the kids, and for the hobby, for the long-term benefit of our hobby. So some great suggestions there, guys. Thank you for that. So we talked a bit about PSA grading right there. Let's jump into what's going on in the world of grading right now within our hobby, Ryan. We've seen, 2 months or so ago now, Beckett put out a letter. They had to raise the prices of some of their services, and they had to eliminate a service. Now we saw PSA a few days ago send out an email, basically the same thing. They're going to be increasing the price of their services. And I have a lot of questions on this, on what it means to the hobby, but let's hear from you as someone who takes submissions from customers. You obviously had to increase your pricing. What do you think this means to the future of graded cards on the secondary market?
I
might have hit you out of left field there, so I apologize. But
no. We list 150 to 200 cards a week on eBay. Our most watched cards every week are PSA graded, right? Like, the market has told us we want graded cards. Again, listing so many cards, selling cards in a store, seeing on Instagram, like, graded cards are really what people want. Again, that's not the only trend cards being bought and sold. Most cards are raw, but again, ask anybody that's been in the hobby for 2 years. Have you had somebody return a card on eBay in the last 3 months because of a damage or defect? Yeah, that's why we grade so many cards, right? They're easier to move than cards that are raw. People complain about corners, centering, surfaces, things like that. So yeah, the market has said graded cards are what we want, 9s, 10s. It seems like that's where the market's going. So I mean, PSA is definitely at the top of that list right now, and I'm not super surprised by the price raise. The demand hasn't slowed down. Again, if they raised it $2, $3, $5, $8, like, would you still grade cards? Probably. So I'm not super surprised by it, and I don't think it's going to be the last time we see it. It's a really big part of the hobby right now, and there's a lot of people doing it. We grade personally 400 cards a month. Like, we grade a lot of stuff. It's a big part of the hobby right now.
Yeah, your grading bills must be huge.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of dollars, right, every month. So I saw a recent video somewhere on YouTube. I don't remember what channel it was, but the headline was basically something like, with the price increases, will the values of your PSA cards go down? And my thought was, probably the exact opposite, because if pricing goes up, all of a sudden, if you're buying, there's going to be fewer graded cards on the secondary market on eBay that you can go purchase. So lower supply means higher demand, means higher prices. I also think, and I'm really just wondering if you agree with these comments, Ryan. I'm not going to take a card that's worth $20 that I want graded and send it off and pay these new prices for grading. Well, let's say I'm not going to do that. So now I'm going to maybe look for that card already graded. And I know that, listen, I mean, if the card is someone wants $50 for the card, that's almost my price to grade a lot of cards nowadays in terms of shipping and insurance and the fee itself. So I think it means that we're going to see the price of graded cards go up in the short term, depending on how long they maintain these new pricing levels and services. And, I think both companies have said, these are temporary measures. I don't see them really going back on them. Why, especially if the market doesn't demand it, because they're still having backlog. Yeah. What do you agree? Does it make sense that the value of graded cards sort of, and I'm not saying every single one of them, but on average across the board, are they going to go up in value because of these new pricing increases?
I'm not sure they're going to go up in value, but I disagree that supply will go down. I can tell you, as someone that does it on a daily basis and sees we get cards every day, demand hasn't moved, right? Like, we're not slowing down because the price went up $5 or whatever. So I just don't see it as much. I think the big thing is there's still options to send in cards that are $20 for longer turnaround periods. Again, we don't send in everything for a faster turnaround time. I understand the concern about like, hey, it's $50. That to me is like if you graded one card, right? Because we charge about $28 for 20-day. So if you've got that and you've got return shipping, insurance, that kind of thing on multiple cards, it definitely can, or on one card, it can certainly get expensive. But that's why we recommend typically more cards, right? If you send in 10 cards, the cost of shipping, insurance, et cetera, is broken down over, multiple cards to save money. As someone that does it, like I said, a lot and sees it on a daily basis, I just don't see the demand or a decrease in grading cards. I just don't see it. Now, will PSA cards
at any value, like even at cards that are worth like $10 to $30, is that demand still there for sending cards in for grading right now?
I think you'll want to be more selective, but like Mahomes' second year optic base cards are $8 to $14, and without looking, I'm going to assume they're over $100 as a PSA 10. So you could grade that card for what, $15-18 plus shipping, insurance, things like that. But if you spend $25 to grade it, with shipping and there and back and the cost of grading, 6 months, is it worth $100? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to see them dropping significantly to make that not worth it, right? You're assuming it's also going to 10, because if it gets a 9, it's not great. So I'm not saying go buy 15 copies, grade every one, and expect everyone to 10, because that's not realistic. You grab, 5 copies, pick out the best one or best 2, grade those. I think there's some potential there. And I think the big thing for us is just doing it more in in a bulk, 20 card orders where you can, alleviate some of the cost of shipping, insurance, those kind of things across all of the cards. But yeah, Mahomes $10 base. I mean, Mahomes might be an exception, right? Like you're probably not sending in your Anthony Davis optic base cards or stuff like that. I think there's things that are probably going to get weaned out in this where you might have graded those before at a cheaper price. You may not now. You may look for some alternative, but yeah, I guess we'll see. As long as the base card market sells for what it is, it's just hard to say that it's not going to. You wouldn't send in those cards.
Yeah, I think that the future values are dependent on. There's some risk involved here, right? You've got the grading risk. Is it going to come back at 10? If you're sending in a modern day card, yep. Hopefully you've looked it over in detail under magnification. You can see Ryan doing that on some of those day in the life videos that I mentioned. Yep. And then you've also got the time risk in terms of how long is it going to take to get that card back, because the market can change substantially before you get that card back, and that can work in your favor or against your favor. Mm-hmm. It really just depends on the player and what they're doing and what the market is doing outside of during that time while you're waiting for your cards to come back. Have you noticed that, like Ryan, where you've had an exceptionally long wait and you're thankful that you did, because you would have otherwise sold the cards sooner? Or have you even heard stories like that recently?
Yeah, I mean, I had sent in some Kylian Mbappe Prism Silvers back earlier this year, like in May, when the soccer market wasn't what it is, and got them back later, and they were worth way more money than they were worth in May. But in the same breath, I've got Dwayne Haskins rookie cards at PSA right now that are probably not going to do very well for me when they come back. So yeah, like you said, that's the important thing, is it works both ways. You're going to have somebody that's come back that's not going to be relevant and his stuff has completely tanked, or stuff that like you said, it's just like the Mbappe's, you send them in and they're $300 a piece and they come back as $6,000 PSA 10s. It's kind of it's wild, but definitely the risk. Like that's definitely the risk.
Yeah, personally for grading, and I've got about 300 cards that I've acquired over the last year or so that I bought wanting to get them graded, and they're not cards I'm flipping. They're all personal collection cards, cool inserts, that kind of thing that I just want to have, and I like them to be uniform. And now I'm thinking to myself, I may not send them in for grading. I might just buy one touches for much more cost effectively, and they'll still show nicely, So that's kind of why I think that we may see some people sending in fewer cards for grading than they otherwise would have, more for those, not real investment type cards or
Sure.
less likely investment type. And if you think about it, back in the 90s inserts weren't investment pieces. They became investment pieces. And so that's kind of what I mean. I've got a bunch of stuff like that I think could eventually become investment pieces. But until they are, why put the money into grading them when they're just going to sit here anyway? Is kind of, I'd love to. Trust me, I want to. I want that PSA mail day. I want that grade reveal. And I want to have them look great with the other cards I already have in that sub PC that are graded, but we'll see. We'll see what I decide. And there's the price, there's the backlogs. Speaking of the backlogs, Ryan, I'm under and tell me if you agree with this, because you have some great insights. This is one of my insights, but I might be wrong, and I'm prepared to be wrong if you think that if you have some arguments against it. But I've heard the term the junk slab era, and I'm wondering when Beckett and PSA get through their backlogs, are we going to see just an influx of graded cards on eBay all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but trickling as they trickle the cards out to their customers that have had them sitting in their facility for months and months now? Are we going to see just all of a sudden the market get swamped with graded cards once they staff up and get these cards back to their rightful owners?
More so than it already is now.
Yeah, more so than now.
When do they get caught up?
Yeah, good.
That's the question. Right? I mean, this isn't again, how many times can we could go back and count, but this is probably the third or fourth time each company has raised their price in the last year. This isn't this has been an ongoing thing for a while. And again, the market continues to grade cards because that's what people really seem to be after. So I'm just not sure it's just going to be a drastic, hey, we're caught up. I just don't think that's going to be, at the way I see grading on, like I said, pretty consistently, it doesn't seem like this is just going to just happen overnight. So it's going to be a gradual increase. So I don't think it's super close to really, guess what the market would look like. Cause I just think it's just going to every day. They're getting through more and more. There's a lot of stuff being sent in though. So,
yeah, I think I think now that I'm thinking about it more and talking to you, I can see the point that it's going to be more of a trickle effect. So they might, it's not just going to all of a sudden they're all released. And I understand that. I kind of wonder how many Prism Zions are sitting there waiting to be slabbed in a PSA 10. And maybe the way I should have put it, Ryan, is the population reports. Are they going to spike all of a sudden not all of a sudden, but are they going to spike as these companies make their way through the backlog? I mean, obviously I think they will. And should that be of concern? Is the demand keeping up?
That's a good question. I don't think cards are going to spike this late from release, right? Zion came out December 7th of 2019. That card's been out for 10 months now. So I don't think you're going to see a spike on that. I just think you're just going to see just straight hockey stick, right? It's just point up. At this point, it's not, I don't think you're going to see it going down anytime soon. I think we're a ways away from that, but next 12 months, I just think the Zion PSA 10 number will just continue to rise. It's become one of the more popular modern day basketball cards.
Yeah, and if he does have a career, then the supply will get gobbled up, right? I mean, I'm going to want one. I want a rookie card of every player who's worthy. I don't have the Zion card right now, but if he, and I don't want one yet. I'm willing to wait, and I'm willing to pay more down the line than I am today once I'm sure that he's worthy of my collection. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm not buying every rookie either. So it's buy a bunch and hope somebody turns out, or just wait and let them turn out and then buy them. And, I've seen that strategy work for people and against people over the years.
Yep.
All right, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's change topics a little bit. Let's talk a bit about Pokemon. And I know my channel is called Sports Cards Live, but Pokemon is, it's for real. And even, going to card shows for the past several years, Pokemon has had its place at sports card shows, the National, the Sports Card Expo, the biggest shows in the world. You find Pokemon there, and some of the biggest collectors, if I can use that terminology, they're dabbling, and some of them are deep into Pokemon. So did you watch Logan Paul's live stream last Friday night, I believe it was, when he broke that original booster box of first edition 1999 Pokemon?
I did not. So I was actually live breaking myself on Instagram and YouTube. So I did not watch it. But again, my two co-hosts on Card Talk, they had actually they were in the pack break, like 1:37 p.m. Gary had bought a pack, so they were in the break, so they watched it, and I've heard all about it from them, and I've seen the clips of it. But yeah, I mean, Pokemon is on fire right now. We talk a lot about it on the podcast. I'm a big fan of it. I think long term it has a lot of interest in it, and I'm pretty bullish.
For someone like me who's very new to it, what is it about Pokemon that makes it so collectible to people who've been in it? Like, why is it so nostalgic? I understand nostalgia when it comes to sports and sports cards, because you watch these players play, you cheer for them, you celebrate when they win, when your team wins. There's nothing like it to celebrate with all your friends and people that are in your community when your team wins. What is the equivalent in Pokemon that generates the nostalgia that drives these values?
Yeah, I think the thing about Pokemon is I view it a lot like similar to, like, if you grew up in the 90s and you were younger and you wanted to buy Jordan inserts and you couldn't, and now you're buying them now because you're in a different monetary bracket, right? Like, you can afford them now. Like, when I got in and we collected Pokemon cards, like, they were really cool when I was a kid. That was the first card I ever collected, was Pokemon. Like, it was big when I was younger. And the thing about it is like, very similar to like old school baseball. They weren't kept in great shape. There wasn't an infinite amount of supply of them. They weren't kept in great shape. So like, the population on Pokemon, like, if you look, that's the biggest thing about Pokemon, is the supply on graded Pokemon is very low. Like, for instance, there's like 550 Shadowless 9 first edition Charizards. Like, I remember being offered one for $17,000 3 months ago, and they're north of 50 grand. Like, 550, there's 550 Zions in the last 3 weeks, probably at PSA. Like, yeah, that's extremely low. And I think that's a big piece in it, is the rarity, the low prop report. They were played with it, right? It was a game, so they were played with, condition sensitive. But again, for me, it's like, I didn't grow up, collecting Jordan inserts or wanting Jordan inserts. I grew up collecting one Charizard. That was the first thing I remember collecting in my life, was Pokemon cards.
Are there any, I hear Charizard all the time. I rarely hear any other character's name. I'm aware of Pikachu, I think, because of the Pokemon Go app from a few years back. But are there other characters that carry the values that a Charizard does? Or are there opportunities in Pokemon still today? I mean, on October the 14th, 2020, where, I'll just tell you, I went out in July and I bought 3 of the unlimited PSA 9s Charizards, and I paid like $800 each.
Very nice.
Yeah. And that was my first dipping my toes. All I knew, Ryan, was that people were getting priced out of the Shadowless first edition.
Yep.
And when they're getting priced out, where are they going to go next? And this is coming from a guy who knew nothing about Pokemon, like nothing. But I have a lot of sports card experience. So I figured, people are going to start looking elsewhere. So I bought the 3. Now, today, it seems like every day they're going up a couple $100. They're doing like $3,000 to $4,000 now each. And I saw there's one over $5,000 on eBay right now. I don't understand it, but there is. So, I saw an opportunity and I jumped on it. I saw what I thought was going to be an opportunity. It was a good move, a smart move. And it turned out to be one. But are there opportunities still today? Like, what can we go looking for in the world of Pokemon outside of Charizards that are going to be, or is it really a one-trick pony, this whole Pokemon thing?
So, one thing I do want to address, I would love to talk about it later, but I think the point you made about like being aware of, hey, this one's too expensive, what's the second best thing? That is a wonderful thing if you're new to the hobby to learn, right? Like, I remember buying LeBron Topps PSA 9 rookies when the Chrome got too expensive, because people can't, that you eventually price out a customer base where you want a LeBron or you want a Charizard, you can't afford the best one, so you buy the second best one. That is so big. So I love that. I love that point. But like Pokemon, I'm not the Pokemon guru here. I know I learn about it from my co-hosts on my podcast on our podcast every time we record. They teach me a lot about it. So I feel pretty good that there's still opportunity in Pokemon, right? Like next year's the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. That will be big. You've got big time. I mean, Logan Paul getting into Pokemon is that's big. I mean, he's one of the biggest content creators there is. Like that's a big deal. The other thing is someone told me this once talking about Pokemon, and it stuck with me. And I think it's an interesting take long term, like 20 years down the road, is sports cards have been passed down from generation to generation, right? Great grandma had them. Grandma got them. Mom and dad got them. You got them, right? They've been passed down. Pokemon's new. We've never passed down Pokemon cards. This is the first time. Like Pokemon are 24 years old now. They've never been passed down from generation to generation. There's a very limited supply of them. There's different sets, but like again, 550 Charizard 9 Shadowless. It's just I'm very intrigued by it long term. In terms of like, hey, what's the next Pokemon to explode? I'm not the Pokemon guru to make that prediction, but we've said a lot on our podcast. Charizard can't tear an ACL, right? Yeah. Like he's not having bad game, right? There's no statistics. There's no like, there's none of that really to worry about with it. So as long as there's a market, I mean, it's one of the largest IPOs with or IPs with the game. They release new Pokemon. There's sets still coming out. Like Pokemon's going to. I mean, it's doing really well. So yeah. I'm pretty bullish on it.
I've been saying that as well. Not only can he not tear his ACL, he can't, get into a domestic issue. He's not going to end up in jail. He's not going to say something stupid on TV. Yep. Charizard has some of those advantages that athletes. He's not going to have a bad season. He's not going to get injured and be out a year, and all of a sudden your investments have tanked. Like, yep. So I don't know what it would take for Charizard to go down in value outside of general market forces like supply and demand. Sure. One of those moves in the wrong direction, we could, there could be an issue. But until then, a couple comments coming in. I do want to mention here. Pepper Dean says Pokemon is so nostalgic because it was literally all kids played from age 5 to 12 for 20 years. It brings people back to their childhood. And that's what I'm looking for. I think that makes sense to me. It's playing the game that creates the nostalgia versus watching players play the game. And I think sitting around with your friends and trading Pokemon cards and playing the game, trying to win. I don't understand the mechanics of the game whatsoever. But if there's a winner and a loser and, you're trading these things, then I can definitely see the nostalgia. I mean, we all want to relive our youth. So that makes good sense to me. Simon says, is it all Pokemon that's valuable in PSA 10 or only first edition and anything Charizard? Can you answer that, Ryan?
Again, I'm certainly not the Pokemon expert here. I know it. I mean, Charizard is definitely one of the ones I've tended to go to. It's just like, it's the LeBron of Pokemon. It's just, that's the one most people want. Yeah, it's just the way it is. I don't make the rules. But yeah, I mean, PSA higher graded stuff has seemed to do pretty well. Like I've got some higher graded first edition non like holographic, like the shiny stuff. I've got some, I'm in different things, but the ones that seem to get the most attention and have the most upward potential, it seems, is Charizard. Unopened wax is pretty big in Pokemon too. Like the original boxes, original packs, stuff like that. That stuff is also on fire. Yeah.
Good to know. I mean, obviously, with Logan Paul buying that box for like $200,000 and selling it for $400,000, I mean, that's $400,000 for a box of cards from 1999. That's pretty crazy. Here's a comment, Ryan, and I mean, you mentioned there's 550 PSA 9. I believe the Shadowless first edition Charizard. I know first edition are all Shadowless, so it's the first edition. Thomas says 559's not rare to me, at least, but really, I mean. Thomas, you have to understand the size of the market and to understand whether or not it's rare. And are they locked away? I mean, rarity isn't just based on how many items exist. I mean, it's obviously a big part of it, but it's what's the demand really? And so 559s in PSA 9 Charizards, to me, that might be minuscule, extremely rare relative to how many people want them. Is that what you're getting at, Ryan?
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Is the demand is much higher than the supply. Like Logan Paul has millions and millions and millions and millions of followers, and if Logan Paul says Pokemon are cool and you want one of the coolest Pokemon, there's only 550 of them. The other big thing is they're not readily available. Like you can't go on eBay and buy 10 first edition Pokemon or first edition Charizards, right? Like they're not that available. 550 is small compared to so many of these sports cards that, sell for thousands of dollars and, have 10,000 plus PSA 10s. It's just, I think 550 is extremely rare.
I do too, considering that Pokemon, I believe, my perception, I could be way off on this, but my perception is that Pokemon is bigger than any other sports card market going. I think that it's bigger than basketball, football, baseball, hockey, for sure. Maybe even bigger than all of those combined. I don't know for sure, but just it's a global phenomenon. It's culturally everywhere, and it's even produced. Now that I'm looking at it, it's in German, French, Italian, Japanese, English. I'm sure it's in Spanish. I'm sure it's in others. It's probably Russian. I mean, so this thing, 550 might be like it's a PSA, like it's a pop 2. It could be the same, relatively speaking. It could be as if I don't know, pick a player had a popular player with a pop 2 or pop 10 or less kind of thing. That could be relatively just how small that is. Andy jumps in and says 550 isn't rare in any sense of the word. However, as you boys mentioned, supply versus demand makes them ultra desirable. Yeah, it's not rare itself if you just look at 550 units out there. But if you look at 20 million people that want one, and it might be 20 million people that want one, there just isn't enough to go around. And that's why they're selling for over $50,000. Yeah, makes sense to me at least. Paul says 550 PSA 9s compared to Ken Griffey Upper Deck rookie card is rare. Yeah, again, it's all relative, right? Simon says the smart Pokemon collectors would have those PSA 9s locked away. And I think they do for the most part. I think a lot of them do. Funny comment here, Ryan, from Cardboard Nostalgia says, my fiance is 9 months pregnant and watching Sports Cards Live for the first time. She's laughing at the Pokemon conversation until I told her about the $240,000 sale. Yeah, for sure. It's serious, right? That got a lot of people's attention. And Logan Paul on his box break, and I watched it, he had no less than like 250,000 people watching this break. And I saw it go over 300,000 several times. I heard him afterwards say, Ryan, that he had over 1 million unique views, and that could be at 2 million by now.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard the floor was about 213, and it got as high as just over 400,000. That is wild. That amount of attention on a opening of Pokemon packs. That's, again, like Logan Paul is one of, if not the biggest content creator there is. That's a lot of attention on the Pokemon market. And like you said, I tend to agree in terms of Pokemon. They continue to make new sets. There's games. There's just all sorts of things. It's not like it hasn't been out in 20 years and nobody knows about it. Like kids still play it now. There's it's popular among the youth now. We see a lot of kids coming in looking for Pokemon. Again, I don't think it doesn't necessarily help that Charizard isn't putting up 40-point triple doubles or winning a Super Bowl MVP. Like that can't hurt those guys that do those things. I just think the risk isn't as severe on Pokemon as it is in sports cards. I just think sports cards, you just got the floor is a lot lower, or if not zero, whereas Pokemon cards I just don't see it going down. I think there's more of an upward trajectory with a lot of that.
And I think what you just said kind of makes me believe that too, because you said there's still kids coming in. The kids are still playing Pokemon, and that's why it's going to last, because these kids, they're from 5 years old to 20 years old, let's say. And so 20, 30, 40 years down the road, when they have money, they're probably going to get nostalgic. It's natural. And they're going to go back and want the cards that they collect. And then they may go back into vintage Pokemon being 1999 to 2003, or what I think is called first generation sort of thing. Couple of things here. Simon, not Simon. I always say Simon watches a lot, and his name is, so I say Simon says a lot. Simon says, did Logan hit any fire from his Pokemon box? Well, I did watch it, and yeah, he hit the Charizard, he hit a Blastoise, and he hit a Venusaur. I know these now. I didn't know them a week ago, but I know them now. And he hit a whole bunch of Pikachus, and he hit some other ones. And yeah, I was told there was a top 10% box based on what came out of it. So several happy pack purchasers within there. Yeah, here we go. Matt says it has 8.5 million views in 4 days. Like, that might be a YouTube record for all I know. Like, that's a big number. And that's why 550 PSA 9s is microscopic compared to anything we've seen, I believe, in sports cards. I mean, the Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee rookie card and a PSA 10, there's two of them. And the last one sold for $650,000 or something like that. Sorry, that was Canadian dollars. So say $4 whatever US. It's a lot of money for a Pop 2 card. Meanwhile, a PSA 10 Charizard just sold for $220,000. And I don't know the pop of the 10, Ryan, but it's in the hundreds, I have to think.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is, especially with like the recent rise, is I think you're going to start seeing, and we're going to talk about this later, I think, with possible like fractional ownership, but like I think you're going to see like you are going to see like cards as an alternative investment to like the extremely wealthy. Like, people that have a lot of money are putting money into sports cards, into cards in general. Like, people with $1 million, investment accounts are going to look at these things for alternative investments and are going to buy these things up. Like, there's not a lot of them for sale. They're going to be bought up, and they're just going to be stored away for a while. I don't see, I think a year from now, the amount of PSA 9s or 10s available is just going to be a lot less. I just really believe that to be true.
Yeah, and the one that just sold last weekend for $220,000 was sold to the retired rapper Logic. He's not going to sell that card ever. The guy's going to go to his grave with it, and I think we're seeing that with a lot of these cards. I have 3 of the PSA 9s of the unlimited version, and I'm not planning to sell them. Although my wife's like, well, you should sell one and then they're all paid for. Yeah, maybe I should, but I have the FOMO too. What if it's a $20,000 card 3 months from now? I'm willing to take that risk and let it go down to what I bought it for, because I'm just not in it to make a quick buck. I'm in it long-term myself. But so those 3 are pretty much locked away now for a good amount of years, I would say.
And I think that's big on a lot of the cards now that are worth that kind of money, is like a lot of the people that if you need the money, you would have likely taken advantage of $50,000 on a 9. A lot of the cards that, if there's 550 of them and they're not readily available, you would assume that a lot of the people that have them now don't likely need the money, and they're not just going to become available on a consistent basis. Like, we're not passing these around like they're, that your average new rookie PSA 10 base card. Like, these aren't very common. I just don't expect them to come up a whole lot.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I think it's I'm a little intrigued. Andy says, LOL, Jeremy chasing the Zard. I am, Andy. I admit it. I'm just a sucker for cardboard. I mean, the difference for me between Pokemon and sports is that sports, I can go study the history. I can watch the players. They're, especially when you go into vintage and the pioneers, and really, they're not only some of the first people on sports cards, they're some of the first people to play these sports. If you go way back in time. But the Pokemon thing, it's a bit of the hype, and I'm happy to admit it. Yes, I'm caught up in the hype a little bit because I watched that Logan Paul thing. 8 million views. Like, that's real. And if I see opportunity, I almost owe it to myself to not ignore a segment of this hobby just because it's got pictures of monsters on it. Sounds kind of funny when you say it, but I do also, and Ryan, I had Ken Golden from Golden Auctions on the show a few months ago, and I said to him, is this Pokemon thing for real? And he said to me and the audience, he said, listen, it's bigger on a global basis than Superman, Spider-Man, Batman. I forget, I'm paraphrasing at this point, but he made the point that this is a cultural phenomenon, just like superheroes are, just like Marvel is, and it's not going away. So that's when I said, okay, you know what? That makes sense to me. I better go buy some of these before they take off in value. Thankfully, I did that. So happy I did that, and happy that Ken made that comment. And I mean, but it's not just about what I did. Obviously, I am interested in the art of Pokemon and the cards that we can all be collecting from there. Ryan, I want to come back to a comment that came a few minutes ago, well, several minutes ago now. I'm looking for it. It had to do with you buying your card shop, and gosh, I might have lost it in here. Basically, the question was, and I'm sorry, it was a question from Ziggy. I can't find it, but he was basically asking, when you bought your shop, Ryan, what did you buy? Did you buy inventory? Did you buy allocation rights? What was it that you actually acquired when you did purchase your store?
I bought everything in the store and everything that came with it. So yes, it included the allocation. That was certainly, and that is in most cases, in most card stores, certainly the biggest asset, right? The ability to purchase hobby boxes at wholesale cost. That's definitely the biggest asset in the shop. But yeah, I everything that came with it. It was more of a museum than a card store, right? Like the inventory was not updated on a consistent basis. The owner was very nice guy. He had been in business for 40 plus years. He was at that location for 7 years, and he didn't really buy a whole lot of like modern stuff like I do, like on a consistent, buy, sell, trade mentality. It was more of a, hey, this lot came in, it was $100. I'm going to sell it to the next guy for 110, make my $10 and be out of it. That was his thing. Just if you can do that on a consistent basis, you'll make a good amount of money without doing a little bit, with doing very little work. So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot in it. It was more of a, hey, this is the turnkey business that, we ended up spending 6 days, fixing it because it was very old school. But it was basically a turnkey business, right? People knew where he was. I had the online following, kind of merged those two together and opened the shop. So, but yeah, basically anything that came with it, I bought. Okay. I don't remember the rest of the question. I didn't see the rest of it.
The other, and I've lost it again, but I'm curious about the location. Was the location key? Or was it just?
Yeah. Look, the location's nice. Again, I'm sure if anyone here's been to it, you can attest to it. But it's a good spot with foot traffic. That is really nice. It's in a great location. I love the location we're in. That has been super cool. This is a good question though, because I get asked this a lot. Like, why own a physical shop versus at home? I think this is a wonderful question. And I don't mean this in any sort of a conceited way, but like for us, it became like we wanted it to be a destination, right? Like I wanted people to come out and say, hey, I'm going to visit Card Collector 2. I wanted people to go there and like and travel to come to our store. I wanted that to be the destination. You can't do that when you're at home and you have an office. Like that's just not the same. So we wanted to make it a destination shop where, hey, this is so cool. You want to seek it out. So that was our goal. So I really think our online following had was a key factor in us deciding to go that route. Because while I've always wanted to do a store, it's just not necessary anymore, right? Like so much business happens online. A lot of our business happens online. You don't need a retail store to be successful. Again, we created ours to be a destination, but I mean, the overhead, the expenses, there's just a lot that goes into a shop that you don't have if you work out of a home office. It's very different. And again, you're also time committed, right? Like, do you want to commit? I'm there most days at 9 o'clock and I don't leave most days till 6 or 6:30, right? You've got to be there from 12 to 6 when we're open. And when I was when I was at home and working from my home office, if, my wife needed me to bring her something at work, I could go do it. If I needed to, take the dog to the vet, I could go do it. I could just drop what I'm doing and leave. You can't do that now. Like, again, I have employees that help with that. So definitely, can now. And I'm thankful for that. But the shop made it a little trickier when, things came up and you're like, hey, I gotta work, I gotta be here. But yeah, just the face-to-face interaction is the best. I've said that time and time again. I'm not an introverted person by any stretch of the imagination. Sitting at a computer all day, just typing and not talking to one, I can't do that. I love talking to people. So face-to-face interaction is big for me. That's why I wanted to do it. I'm lucky enough to work with great people every day, and I learn a lot and get to see people and talk, and face-to-face interaction. That's by far the coolest aspect of it.
Sounds to me like you're in a full-time card show, really.
Yeah.
That's kind of almost what you were looking for, and it's what you created for yourself. And I have to think that the people that come to your store that are in the geographical area that can come, that it's their LCS, they must be pumped that you've injected new life into it, youth and energy into the store. Really, I can only imagine the quality of inventory is 100-fold better than it was before. So that's pretty awesome for the people that live around you and that shop at your store. Like, they must love what you've done with it. Do you get those sorts of comments and reactions? Yeah,
I mean, we've done a pretty good job changing it, and we've certainly got some positive feedback about that. I mean, always trying to make it better, right? I think that's big. When I bought it, it looked like a 1997 card store, and I know this old owner still, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. It was more of a museum. It wasn't, we made it more inviting, more open, more, personal, like less transaction based. It was, in the past, it was more come in. There wasn't a lot of room to sit. There wasn't a lot of room to move. It was just come in, get yourself and go. And that's just not what I wanted it to be. I mean, it sounds weird, but it's very similar, like a barber shop, right? Like, you go in and it's supposed to be like, let's have a conversation.
Yeah. So. Like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. I think we all want that in our local card shop. And I think most of us have something like, well, if you have an LCS, hopefully it's like that. And the owner is welcoming and wants you there, just doesn't want you in and out. I think that's what collectors really want. Jordan says, Ryan, would love to collab with you on behalf of For the Hobby. Happy to send you a bunch of cards to give kids at the shop and share some creative ideas to attract new hobbyists. Jordan was my guest on an episode a few weeks ago. Check that out. He's awesome. He is truly For the Hobby, which we need more people like that. Thank you for the comment, Jordan. Yeah, very awesome. Before we do touch on to the whole fractional ownership topic, Ryan, because it is definitely something that's, it's a hot topic right now. And there's a lot of content out about it right now. And I do want to hear your thoughts on it. I was looking for another comment here, and it has escaped me again, guys. I'm sorry. I just can't keep up tonight with these right now. Well, here, let's see this one. This is pretty cool. Karn says $600,000 was just turned down for a complete PSA 10 first edition set. The collector bought it a decade ago. Sites being too connected to them to sell. That's why I'm bullish. So yes, Karn is one of my go-to Pokemon experts, and that's why he's bullish. Somebody who bought it 10 years ago doesn't need I don't want to say he doesn't need 600 grand, but isn't willing to part with them for even $600,000. That's life-changing money to most people in the world.
Yeah, there's a set that sold 4 months ago for like $129,000.
It's unbelievable what a weekend like last weekend can do for the segment, Ryan, in terms of Logan Paul, the $220,000 Charizard sold by Iconic Auctions. I mean,
and it's no different than like sports cards, though, right? Like, relevancy has always mattered. That's why basketball cards don't sell when there's no basketball being played. That's why, Luka 10s aren't 12 or $2,000 anymore. They're 1,100. Or Zion 10s aren't 800. They're 550. Or Luka Silver 10s aren't 10 grand. They're 6 grand, right? Like, Luka's not putting up triple doubles, right? Everything has its moment, and the attention that Logan Paul has brought to it, and other big names. That's, again, relevancy will always matter in the collectible market.
100%. Yeah, I like, not only will Charizard not tear his ACL and he won't end up in jail or on TV for doing something stupid, but there's no off season, right? There's no off season. So I don't know what drives the cycles of that market. I haven't been through enough cycles or enough weeks really in it to understand it, but I'm looking forward to learning more. It is what it is. I'm not going to be apologetic for it. I can like whatever I want for whatever reasons I want, but And I will say, there were times, however many years ago, where I said, I'll never get into Pokemon. I don't understand it. But hey, I'm an open-minded person, and I like things that I like to look at, and they are nice. There is some artistic value to them. There is some eye appeal and some aesthetic value to them that is just nice.
Sure.
And the fact that they're so popular means that they can become good investment pieces. And like I said, Ryan, I started in the hobby in like 1980 as a kid, and I've never left it. So I've seen 40 years worth of sports card cycles and the industry evolving. And that's what I'm basing these decisions on. For me, dipping my toes into Pokemon isn't just hype. It's not because I'm just, getting caught up in the hype or the FOMO. It's because I think I'm taking my hobby experience and I'm applying it to this segment because it's fun and there's investment potential. So going back a little bit here, a couple more comments I want to bring in. Richard says that when Derek had his shop near me in Vancouver, it was just real fun after work to hang out with the game on, sifting through 5,000 count boxes of cards. Really enjoyed that over scrolling eBay. And that comes back to, the bricks and mortar versus just sitting in your home and doing it there. But then Simon says, does Ryan think there will be more of a shift towards online card collecting, buying, selling, etc., long-term due to the pandemic? How do you see, and this was on my list to ask you, Ryan, is how has the pandemic affected your business, and how have you managed to maintain revenues while people are not going out as much as they were before?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I think the answer is yes, right? Like COVID definitely changed a lot of things, right? Like think of when's the last time you hugged a person, right? Just life changed so much with COVID. I just don't think you're just dying to go out and go to card stores as much. I mean, we get pretty good foot traffic. So I say that, opposite end of my mouth, but yeah, I think that's why our social content has exploded in the last 6 months, right? Like for perspective, on July 26th July 16th or July 26th, I had just hit 30,000 followers. We're almost to 40, right? It took me 7 years to hit 30,000 followers, and it's taken me 4 months to hit 10 more thousand. Like social media has exploded for cards. So this is definitely a moment here. I definitely see an increase in Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, like it's all on fire. But COVID really was eye-opening for us, right? Like when I first bought my store last year, we talked about the allocation before. We were getting a couple boxes of a product. We'll say 2 cases or a case and a half. So the average football product, that's about 18 boxes. We were going through those pretty consistently, like in a 3 day period. So I was never really able to break those products online. When COVID happened and we got shut down for 2 months, we were forced to break, right? Like if you don't have people coming in your store, you have to generate revenue everywhere or elsewhere. And that's when it led to us breaking. And again, I used to break back in the day before I had opened the shop. So we had the following in place, started doing that, and it was a major success for us. We were breaking multiple times a week, multiple products, like long hours at a time. And it was eye-opening. It was like, hey, this is a serious revenue generator for us. And that led to other different things like starting grading submissions, right? Listing more consistent auctions on eBay. I have a good amount of inventory from years of collecting, lots of cool stuff, and can't keep it all. So got to be able to consistently turn over inventory. So we're at the point now where we list 800 to 1,000 cards a month. That's new for us. We weren't doing that. Just a lot of things. I started the year with 1 half-time or part-time employee, and I'm up to 6 employees that work more than 20 hours a week. So COVID was eye-opening for us for sure. And it was eye-opening is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, man. Fair. Very fair. Very fair. Nice comment from Brian. Great show as usual. Sports Cards Live #1. Thank you so much, Brian. Must say, appreciate that comment. How many cards are in the first edition set? Oh, I see that got answered. 103, including Red Cheeks right after. Thanks, Yam. Always great to see you. Pepperdine says, new sets generate hype around particular Pokemon types of cards, VMAX, shinies, rainbows, etc. Sounds like parallels to make the sports cards analogy. And influencers push the focus on particular sets and cards. Hey, very similar to sports cards, right? I mean, there's something for everybody for the most part, but influencers can push people in certain directions. Nothing magical about that. Simon says back here, I think there's a limit to the amount of different Charizards that they can create before it gets a bit stale. Too much of a good thing, like all different parallels in basketball of the different players. It's an interesting comment. I don't know what that'll look like, but something to watch for, right? I mean, but I wonder, is the Nintendo or the Pokemon company, and I don't know if you know this, Ryan, it's just a question I have though. Are they controlling the output, the supply that they're putting out there to not drown out the market or not flood the market? Do you know? Can you even respond to that?
I know they're re-releasing some sets. Again, I'm not super knowledgeable in Pokemon, so don't take my word as the end all be all on this. But like, I know they're re-releasing some of the bigger newer sets recently. Like, I know there's going to be more Champion Path releases. There's going to be another Hidden Fates release, and that's the one kind of concern I have about the modern Pokemon stuff versus some of the vintage stuff that's not being remade. Is the newer stuff very similar to like the rumor about the 89 Upper Deck Griffey? You can't prove production. You have no idea how many's out there. The easiest way to do that, that's why I think PSA and Beckett are so helpful, is the pop report, because people want graded cards. Those are resources to see how many are graded. That really paints the picture on these modern Pokemon cards. As you continue to watch those charts go up with higher or more 10s and more 9s, that will paint that picture. But that's kind of my concern about some of the more modern stuff, is just simply the supply. Can the demand keep up with it? I'm not sure I quite agree with this. I understand it, but if they made another LeBron refractor, it would still sell regardless of what it was. So I still think people are going to buy Charizard. Kids want Charizard. It's the card, right? Like, there's always a guy people want. For Pokemon, they add newer ones here or there, but Charizard is still the one. And like I said, if they made more LeBrons, people would still buy them. I have a hard time believing people wouldn't buy a Charizard.
Sounds to me like there's just a lot of dedicated character collectors. And it's like, if you collect Pokemon, you collect Charizard. You may collect other cards too, but you may just be a Charizard collector, in which case maybe you want every card that comes out of his, as if he's gendered, maybe he is. You want every Charizard card that comes out. That makes sense to me. That's what collecting really, that's how we collect. Paul says, next up for Jeremy, Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, I don't know. Someone asked me, well, what about Magic? And I said, if I look into, and I did this at my local card shop just last week, I looked at a showcase of Pokemon and a showcase of Magic, and the Magic just looked dark and sad to me, where the Pokemon looked bright and happy. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer, and that just comes down to personal preference, of course. Oh man, so many great comments coming in here, guys, and I want to appreciate Ziggy. Here's a great one: 74 watchers and only 29 thumbs up. Smash that thumbs up, and I'll take a moment here, Ryan, if you don't mind, just to again, lots of new viewers who probably haven't seen Sports Cards Live before. I want to welcome all of you to the show. I've been doing this since April. This is episode number 54. I got a library of great episodes. They are long, so watch them in chunks: 10 minutes here, 15 there, 20 minutes there, sort of thing. YouTube will remember where you left off. Please consider subscribing to the Sports Cards Live channel. I would greatly appreciate it if you would. It's always nice to see that subscribership number go up. It just makes you feel like you're doing a good job and providing content that people like. So I greatly appreciate it. And thanks to you, Ryan, for publicizing that you were appearing. It's not beyond me that you have a huge following. So thank you for
absolutely
publicizing, coming on and bringing more viewers to my content. I greatly appreciate that from you directly. Some more comments, so let's get to them here. I want to welcome to the show, Jose Hernandez says, Pokemon prints a good amount of each set since they're more in line with people who play the game and not the collector, which makes sense to me. And the fact that people play the game means that many of these cards they're not going to gem. They're just not going to. Ziggy says, as a sports card collector, I look at Pokemon as the canary in the cave when it dips. Sports cards will be next. Pokemon will dip first, in my opinion. I would just say to that, everything is cyclical. Everything is cyclical in the economy. So it's going to happen. It's going to dip. Things are going to dip. The question really becomes, what's the new floor? What's the new floor? And is the new floor sustainable by new entrants? And I'm a new entrant into Pokemon. I have personally had a small impact on raising that floor because I've tucked away 3 of these cards. So jump in.
I was going to say, and we saw that with basketball, right? Like when COVID first happened and it brought a mass influx of people into the market. There was a 3-month period where if you bought something, you didn't lose money. Like the market was that good. And right when basketball returned end of July, early August, we really started to see that was when people really were like, hey, maybe not everything we buy turns to gold automatically, because you were buying something and 3 weeks later it was worth way more money. Like it was like you would sell. I remember selling Luka PSA 10s for $450 like the first week of July, and they were $2,000 5 weeks later. Not even 5 weeks later, and I'm like, I missed out on $6,000 selling them for $500 versus $2,000 in a month. And they went up. They got to about right around $2,000. And then they came down, and they're about $1,100 now. And one of my co-hosts on Card Talk mentioned this. Tyler mentioned this. They were $400 consistently as 10s. Now they're consistently $1,100, and I think that's the key. There is they may not be $2,000 still, but they're also not a $400. The floor has risen, and it's definitely a nice improvement on that end.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, man. Terry says, how do you tell if it's a first edition? Terry, there's a marking right on it. You can Google that and find that really quick. It's very obvious how to tell. Yam says, Ryan, thoughts on tennis GOAT cards, Federer, Serena, etc. You want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah, it seems like something cool. Like as a collector of cards, I would certainly love to get something neat of Federer, Nadal, Serena, something like that to keep. I'm not in that market or that space, so I don't really know it. Maybe someday I'll grab something of them, because I definitely think those are, there are GOATs in that sport for sure. Especially guys and girls I got to grow up watching. So I think it'll be cool one day, but it's just not a market I'm in or know much about.
Fair enough. I mean, but it is interesting because we're, Tiger Woods, there's an individual sport, right? And sure, he's got cards that are worth good money. Mike Tyson's got Muhammad Ali. These guys have cards that are worth big money, old stuff from other countries. And so you got to, and I think the question that Yam is asking is really like, are there still opportunities out there outside of the traditional, the big four, the 4 major sports, outside of the guys like Tiger Woods? Because when his Upper Deck rookie came out, in I don't remember the year, 1992 or something like that. It was everywhere. It wasn't a hard card to find, but now people are going back and they're chasing it because of what's happening in the overall hobby. So can that now transfer to tennis players and other sports that are not really the big 4 team sports? And I think there is demand for it. I mean, we see Upper Deck has done with their PMGs, the employee cards. They've done Michael Phelps, they've done Oscar De La Hoya, they've done Hulk Hogan. These cards sell for big money, and they're very nice, and they're sports cards. So, but good question, Yam. I think it's relevant to today because we're all still looking for those opportunities at this time, and I think there are opportunities. I say every time I walk through the National, every year after year, I say to myself, what am I looking at right now that a year from now I'm going to wish I bought today? And here 100%. I am, I can buy it, but none of us can see the future. So, but we take our best guesses and we use our experience to make those forecasts and to maybe put our money where our mouth is and to buy something and take a risk. And when I did it with those Charizards in June, July, and now I've been proven right, that just makes me think I might be onto something. So, but my next move might be a mistake, or it might not turn out the same way, right? You can't get it right every time.
Exactly. It's not a business if you make money on everything.
No, it's a fantasy, and at that point, yeah. And these last 6 months have somewhat been a fantasy, especially since Ryan, when lockdowns were announced and NBA shut down, I think everybody in the hobby thought this is the end of the hobby, or at least
Sure, 100%.
All of our cards are now tanking in value because people need money to buy supplies, not
logically that makes sense, right? And that's what's the craziest thing about COVID, and this is why again, I've sold a lot of the excess stuff that we have as much, and we were so big on eBay. Is logically, if you ask any person, hey, there's going to be a pandemic, it's going to shut down a lot of the country, it will unfortunately kill a lot of people, like there will be no sports, you can't travel anywhere, you have to wear a mask, like logically you would say, well, that's not good for sports cards, right? Things that are typically not good for cards are recessions or war. Like those aren't, you stop putting money in hobbies when those things happen. And here we are, and the hobby is on fire, and it's kind of backwards to what I think most people would expect. I sold a lot of stuff when it happened. I mean, I wasn't in the position I'm in now. The hobby was different. I can't eat these cards. These cards pay my bills. I had to sell stuff. It's like, I was like, hey man, I got to sell some. We sold a good amount of stuff, and definitely interesting.
We can't eat them. We can't wear them, and we can't live in them. So, right. And those are the basic needs of humans. So, along with social interaction, it also tells me just how resilient and strong the hobby is. If it can not only survive, but thrive in an epidemic when people are looking for something to do with their time and their money. And they, like you said way earlier in the episode, people are turning to old hobbies. Are they going to stick with it? And that's really the question. Are they going to stick with it? Or a lot of these new people that are coming in over these past 6 months, are they going to stick with it once they can travel again, once they can bet on sports again, once they can go to sporting events, watch games at pubs with their buddies, that kind of thing, right? Are they going to stick with it? I think, and I've said it before, Ryan, it's a numbers game. 100% that many will stay. I don't know what that many looks like. I don't know if it's 1% or 50% or somewhere else, but many people are going to stick with it because they'll have that collector gene that just wasn't woken yet. And now it's woke, and they're going to stick with it because, let's face it, it's a freaking awesome hobby. We all love it. So it's not like we're the only ones that can love it. They're going to stay with it. So I think that the foundation is more solid than it's ever been for the hobby. Yep. And while we're going to see cycles, and we're going to see, the overall index values, if I may call it that, come down, dip a little bit. We need a dip. The dip. We've heard it before. I'm sounding cliche, but the dip is healthy because we need a reality check, and then we needed to come back. I've lived through dips in this hobby before. We saw one just in around 2016, 17. There was a run up, and then there was a dip. I bought some cards in that run up, and then in the dip, I'm like, damn it, I should have waited. Well, guess what? I'm back in the money now on those particular cards. I just had to wait for the next cycle. There will be more cycles, guys. So don't be too impatient. Don't fire sell everything you have the first time you get the inkling of a dip, unless you're just you don't want to be in it anymore. Then sell it, and hopefully maybe we'll see you back again in the hobby in the future. But anyway, I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a rant there. Thanks for that. I want to just point out, Simon says that Tiger's rookie card was 95, was only a few unofficial cards from that year. Like Sports Illustrated one or some other one, I believe. 2001 Upper Deck is considered his official rookie card. Yes. Okay. 01. Thank you, Simon. That's the one that I was thinking of. Jordan says, Ryan, you've publicly talked about being inspired by Gary V, and you now work with him and his team. Can you talk about that and how you can inspire others like Gary inspired you? Interesting question. You want to field that one?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Yeah. I mean, I posted about it when it happened. Was it 2015, 2016? I was sitting at a desk. I used to work at a community college doing like data entry, right? So I'd sit at a computer. There was two screens. One was my Excel or Access database. The other one was Gary V, right? And I watched a lot of his content, and it, for the better, it changed my life, right? Like I was very motivated by the things he was saying. This is before Gary got into cards. I know some people are very opinionated about Gary V now. I was sold on Gary V for what his message was, not anything he did in cards. And I don't want to go into all that, but it was very much like, one life, no regret. Like, you can't come home and complain that you hate your job so much and not do anything about it, right? Like, you can't say that, like, this is not like, man, life sucks. You work a lot of your life, most of your life is working, right? If you're going to work all the time, you might as well do something you absolutely enjoy. So I frankly just busted my rear end and just spent Friday night. And I just focused on this. I was like, if I really want to do this, I have to prove to myself that I could do this. And you know, late nights and long weekends, and it just I focused on that, and I came home and after work and school and focused on that. So I think the big thing I try to do is I'm very much aware, like you said earlier, like people comment like, Ryan, you're living my dream. And I'm very, very much aware of how opportunistic I am and how lucky I am to be doing this all the time. And I don't take that for granted. So I certainly try where I can to inspire others with, a lot of the same positivity that, has been instilled in me. And I just, oh, that's the big thing for me is just, life is what you make it. And, it's all about perspective, right? Like that's the way I try to look at it. So I try to post that on a lot of my social media content. I don't get caught up in like the negativity or the bad apples or that kind of thing. So I don't try to talk much about that. I try to keep it pretty positive. And again, that's why I like to share so much of my content is I realize that a lot of people want to do what I'm doing. So I want to at least, I don't want to let those people down.
Yeah, that I love that what you just said at the very end. I don't want to let those people down. You're aware that you have an audience. I don't want to patronize you or say, but you're somewhat of an influencer. You like it or not, it just comes with having that many people that see your content on a regular basis. And the question that Jordan said, you talked about being inspired by Gary Vee. My experience with Gary, I knew of him prior to cards, prior to the 2019 National, from his content and his positive message. And I went to his booth at the National. I bought a card from him in 2019 in Chicago, and I saw him at his booth. And months and months later into this year, I've seen people make comments about, is he just being opportunistic or, pump and dump, that kind of thing. And if anyone's out there watching that thought that, I want to let you know what I saw. I saw a guy who was giddy to be at the National. He was like, just like any of us would be. You're in your element. You're exactly where you want to be. I go to the National once a year. I go to 2 sport card expos in Toronto in May and November when we have shows. And I say to people, these are my favorite weekends of the year. All 3 of those are my 3 favorite weekends of the year. I get to go cardboard nerd out with all my cardboard nerd friends, and we hang out. We do trade night. We eat together. We do all these things together. And that's what I saw in Gary. I mean, he was loving it. It was just like a kid in a candy store, like we all are. And that's when when I hear any of the other stuff, I think you guys you're just wrong as far as my perception goes. The guy loves the stuff, and unfortunately for him, he's such an influencer. He has to watch what he hypes, I guess, or what he shows and talks about. But his message is generally very positive, and the fact that it changed your life and it put you where you are today, I mean, that's a good thing. That's a great thing. So, thanks to Gary for having the influence on your life, and now you're helping people enjoy the hobby more. You've got your shop. You've changed the hobby landscape in your geographical area, if not the world, just based on what you're doing. So it's like we're all meant to be here, sort of thing. I think it's really cool. Ayo Rhino, welcome to you. We're having a great time tonight. Absolute says, so expanding your knowledge is how you grow. You two have me looking at hockey, basketball, and football, especially any card that is a jersey number. That's interesting.
Love it. I'm so big on this. Again, I'm sure I'm in a small minority in this, but the jersey number thing that's my jam. I love that stuff.
I do. I like it too. I like number 1 of 100, 100 of 100, that kind of thing as well.
Love it.
Turns my crank. Are you
Cool.
guys noticing the grading companies grading harder nowadays? That's a much better question for Ryan.
Yeah, I have I pay very close attention to um, you know, subs like submissions we get back and submissions I see other people posting and uh, yeah, I mean, I don't again, I have no inside knowledge of anything grading at all, zero in terms of grading scales or anything like that, but from what I've seen it looks like it's been tougher. Not sure if that's intentional or not. It just maybe the cards aren't maybe quality control's wrong. Again, it just where does the problem lie in? Are the grading card companies are they grading higher? Is quality control lacking? Like where's it come in at? I'm not sure, but yeah. If I'm being honest, I think it's been a little tougher.
Interesting. And I've always kind of wondered, I remember hearing back, gosh, probably in 2010 or 11 that PSA had hired a new VP. It was a woman, and they were now grading harder. And I thought, oh no, like now I'm less wanting to grade my cards because I don't want the lower grades. But at the end of the day, your card is in the condition it's in. It doesn't matter what the number says to the card, but it sure matters to the market what that number says.
Yep.
Just want to point out, guys, we're past the 2-hour mark, Ryan. I hope it hasn't felt like 2 hours to you, but past 2-hour mark, we are officially into overtime on Sports Cards Live. So we put up that overlay at the top there. I feel like we can go on for 2 more hours, but I know it's much later where you are than where I am. I'm at 10 p.m. You're at midnight. So we're going to wrap this up soon. I think we're going to skip the Sports Cards Live 5 tonight, just in the interest of time. But I do want to do the PC card of the day, and I have 2. So we're gonna move to that right now. So my personal collection card of the day. This is something I do, guys, where I want to show a card from my personal collection that ties into my guest. So Ryan is from the Columbus, Ohio area. He's a fan of the Columbus Blue Jackets, which, if you don't know, is the NHL hockey team in Columbus. They were an expansion team in the early 2000s. I've actually, Ryan, I don't think I told you this. I've been to a game. I've been to a home game in Columbus in like the second year, I believe it was, when they were there. And
that's awesome.
I will tell you, I felt that arena was very intimate. It's you feel like you're on top of the game.
100%. That's exactly how it's built. That arena is awesome. Nationwide Arena is really, really cool. I went to it was the day I pulled a Luka Doncic National Treasures patch auto. The Blue Jackets hosted their first ever game in the second round. They'd never done it. That was when they swept the Lightning last year. They swept the Lightning, and then they played Boston in the second round. And it was like game 3. The series was like tied 1-1, and they hosted their first ever home game. By far the coolest sporting event I've ever been to. It was wild. It was I saw LeBron play in the finals. I've been to 40 Ohio State games. I've been to a lot of cool sporting events. By far the coolest sporting event I've been to was the Jackets in the second round. That place was rocking.
And don't they like fire off a cannon when they score a goal?
Yeah, it's wild. It's an experience. It's really cool. If you're ever in Columbus and Blue Jackets are playing when COVID doesn't exist or restrictions aren't there, you should go. It's well worth it.
Check it out. And I mean, and just to everyone out there, I know hockey is not the biggest sport out there among American fans and all that, but give it a chance. Hockey is super exciting. It's a ton of fun to watch, and the cards are, in my opinion, the nicest ones out there because we have the best patches, the best uniforms, the best logos of any sport.
Yep.
And I don't think that's really biased. I think that's an objective type of comment, but I will admit I am biased towards hockey, but give it a chance. So I think, okay, we've had some requests to do the Sports Cards Live 5, Ryan. So that's going to be up to you if you got the time. I'm going to do the card of the day first. I got 2 cards to show, and they're both of probably one of the best Columbus Blue Jackets of all time, Rick Nash. I do believe he was their first draft pick ever. I think he was.
That's a great question.
I think. I'm not 100%. Someone out there can confirm that. I believe he was, but that might not be true. Maybe second or third year they picked him. But Rick Nash was a superstar. And so I'm going to show off this. I'm going to show 2 cards. The first one, Ryan, you haven't seen. This is a card of the player. It's not a Blue Jackets card, but it's a card of Rick Nash from his junior days. So This is
Oh,
a
that's
1-of-1 ultimate emblem from In the Game Ultimate Memorabilia. This is from the year 2010. And that he played for a team in juniors called the London Knights from London, Ontario. And basically you're seeing the whole knight, the whole shoulder patch from his junior jersey right here. As you can see, it's a 1-of-1. And these cards came out for about 4 or 5 years. The other one I have is from the same set, different year, but this is a Blue Jackets card. And this is, I mean, it's like a full card patch. It's colorful. Now, what I did do, Ryan, I'm just because the colors don't always pop on for whatever reason, and I'm not sure if this does, but here, I'm gonna show it here.
Yeah, it looks more yellow when you hold it up, and look. I remember it looks a lot greener in this photo because this is like the color of the mascot.
Yeah, that actually shows you the color. That's what the card looks like to the naked eye. And then here was the other one that I showed, just so you can see kind of the colors do sort of pop. And yeah, so these are locked up in my personal collection. They've been there for almost 10 years or so now already.
Yeah,
and,
those patches are great.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you like them. I will admit we cheated. I showed you this one here yesterday. And I mean, Ryan's eyes did pop when I showed him this card. You got happy. It was I wished I waited for today to show you to get that kind of that authentic excitement from you, but I can still tell that you do like it. So I'm glad you do, man. That's the PC card of the day, everybody. That goes with that overlay right there. Ryan, let's jump in. We'll do the Sports Cards Live 5 questions. And are you good to go for a few more minutes here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. We're good.
All right. So let's jump in. Sports Cards Live 5, Ryan. This isn't really a speed round or anything, but it's 5 questions. So favorite card in your personal collection?
I've always said, and I'll stick true to it. If I had to give up anything, I would give up everything first, other than my Donnie Nicky collection. Again, guy went to the same school as I did, was drafted by the Buckeye, or played at Ohio State, won a national title there, plays for the Titans. He won a national championship at Ohio State in 2002 when I was 9. So seeing someone from my, hometown make it big, go into the NFL, play for so long. His mom was my art teacher, and collecting his cards, that what's really got me hooked into cards. I was the first person I collected. So my Donnie Nicky stuff, it's probably the least expensive stuff in my whole entire PC, but to me, I would give up everything else for that stuff. So my Donnie Nicky stuff for sure.
And you know what? I mean, you hear you see a lot of people collect a lot of different players, and people always ask, why do you collect this obscure player? Yep. And it's because of that. There's a personal reason. There was a moment in time. You met the player, you knew the player, you were young, you met the player, and they gave you one of these on the head and said, attaboy, that kind of thing, like whatever it is. So awesome. Okay, question 2. What is the highest priority want card on your list that is actually attainable?
Man, there's 2 cards that, I've got 2 cards. I got ambitious goals on these. I really, really want to own a 52 Mantle Tops. Like, that is the card I really, really want to own. I've got some cool stuff put away, but that's really the card that I really, really want to own, even if it's not even I know a 1's north of 5 figures. So I understand that that's gonna require some capital and some selling some cool stuff to get. A Brady Contenders is also on my want list. I'm an Ohio State guy, so buying Michigan guys isn't near the top of my want list, but I'm a Patriots fan, so watching Brady and all those years in New England, I used to own one. Unfortunately didn't keep it, so Brady Contenders is probably up there as well. Those are 2 of my holy grail cards at the moment.
Okay, question 3. Where's your favorite place to buy cards?
Instagram.
Good answer coming from you. Number 4, if you could change one thing about the hobby, what would it be?
That's a good question. If I could change one thing about the hobby, what would it be? I don't know. Let's come back to that one. Let's go to the next one. I'm not sure I know an answer to that immediately.
All right, sure. Come back to it. Question 5 is, what is your biggest hobby purchase or sale regret?
I owned 3 Mahomes National Treasures 9/5/10 patch autos. Sold those for about $3,000 a piece. They're worth north of 50. a piece, and I sold the Luka Doncic I hit last year. Sold that for 16.5, and it auctioned on PWCC last month for north of 200,000.
So you've got some legit regrets, but we don't want to have regret. And the other thing I always say to people when, and those are extreme things that happened after you sold them. But, you take that 16.5, you buy something, you make money with, especially you're in business, you make some money on it. In the meantime, you take the proceeds from that, you make money on it, Yeah.
If you're continuously flipping the money, right? If I flipped that 16.5 every month for the last 18 months, I would have made a good amount of money, assuming, 10% for 18 months, you make a good amount of money. It's not impossible. Again, it might not be it might be harder to reach that, but yeah, if the goal is to obtain it. And again, ideally, everything we sell goes up. That would be the goal, right? That tells you the market is hot and the market is strong. So the more stuff goes up after. If I had to sell a Luka 9.5 or a Luka patch auto for it to hit 200,000 and the market to be this great, I'd do it all over again, right? Like the market's in a much different place now. So yeah, that was, again, can't win them all. And I feel good. It works both ways though. I'm sure there's things I sold that aren't worth anywhere near that anymore.
And the people that bought those from you and went and made some money, they're that much more entrenched and invested in the hobby now. And, it's good. You've had wins too. There's no doubt you've had some big wins in the hobby, and some other people have had some wins that you help facilitate. And the other thing is that the cards move. The cards move around. Not all. Some of them are locked away, but many cards move around from person to person. And without cards moving, we wouldn't have comps. We wouldn't have the opportunity for cards to even go up in value. So, and especially you're talking about cards are out of 99. There's not many to go around, right? So they have to turn over in order for the market to experience these increases in values of these particular pieces. So, all right, man, good stuff. We're going to go back to overtime quick. And, we wanted to talk about fractional ownership a little bit tonight before we signed off. I think we should do that briefly because it is a hot topic. It's something I'm interested in. I had the CEO of Collectible on the show last week, and with Ezra Levine, we had a great conversation. But from your perspective, Ryan, what are your thoughts on fractional ownership? Does it work? Will it last? Who's it for? Generally speaking, can you give us your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's super, super interesting concept. Not my thing. The reason I love cards so much is they're tangible, right? You can touch them. The fractional ownership never has appealed to me just because it's just like, just same reason I'm not really much I don't follow the stock market every day. It's just a lot less tangible to me. I think it's cool. I think it's to people that are more into the stock market, right? And are like, I think that's the biggest thing about about cards, and why so many of the guys that when COVID happened, a lot of daily fantasy players got into sports cards and are here. I know multiple of them. I know many of them personally, and they got in. And I think that's the big thing about cards that they like, and I know it's what I like, is they're just tangible, right? You can see them, you can hold them, you can exchange them. It just with that, it's just more of a click and a button and it's gone kind of thing. It's a little different, but again, ComC is really big, and that you do that on ComC where you go and check out my cards and you buy a card and you relist it and you sell it. It's day trading. But yeah, fractional ownership, like I said, it's an interesting idea, and I think it's definitely here to stay in cards as an alternative investment. Just never really been on my alley.
Yeah, when I say who is it for, I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. So you've said it's not for you, and that's totally cool. Of course, we all approach the hobby in our own unique way, and we need to respect everyone's approach. I see it being for people who are not really collectors like we are, but do want to get involved in the hobby and maybe just don't want to deal with eBay and all that sort of thing. So while it's not tangible, you still do own a percentage of an asset. Like when you own a stock, you own a percentage of Apple or Amazon or whatever it is. You do own it, but like you said, the stock market to me is no fun because I don't get off on looking at my monitor and telling me how many shares I have of this company, what they're worth today, and how much they went up or down. That doesn't do it for me. Yep. The cards do. The cards are my stock market, just like you. That's where, and if you are educated and you have some experience and you have some discipline, the card market can actually be a very, very fruitful investment vehicle. We call it an alternative investment. I mean, it's primary for me. It really is.
Touché.
Outside of my house, and maybe even more so than my house, is my card collection. It's not alternative for me, that's for sure. It's certainly primary for you as well. You do it for a living and you're invested. So yeah, okay, we don't have to talk about that much anymore, really. I just wanted to hear your take on it. And although I will say one more thing, I do think it's gonna sustain and last because the market, it's such a big marketplace, and it does appeal to people. I just wonder how many collectors will kind of veer off in that direction and not stop buying cards to hold 100% of them, to own 100% of them, but will dabble in that market. I've heard many people have already. I will admit, if I could, I would have some shares of these things too, just because why not? Like, I'm in the hobby. I want to try all different facets of it. So I would, but I'm in Canada, so they can't offer it up here. The Rally and Collectible can't do that yet. So hopefully they will one day. Anyway, man, listen, we're well past what I like. I try to keep these shows to about 2 hours. I know we could keep on going, but I want to respect your time. I know you got a business to run in the morning, so we can. I think we should wrap up. I'll ask the viewers, guys. Thank you so much. First of all, we're gonna run through a few of the comments as we sign off here. So we're gonna wrap up. We're not wrapping. It'll take us a couple minutes here, Ryan. But I do want. Ziggy says here, eliminate exclusive licenses and let them compete. If I can,
love that. That's fantastic idea. That Ziggy with A plus idea. This would be awesome. Like, just think of like all the things we're missing out in the hobby because of the exclusivity, right? Like, we don't have LeBron and Jordan autos. You're not gonna have LeBron, Jordan, Zion autos. You're not gonna have that to me. I mean, when's the last time we've had Kobe, rest in peace, Kobe, but like, you're not going to get Kobe, LeBron, Jordan autos again. Like those, it makes the other aspect of it is it makes the ones that we do have worth more, but you're just not getting them anymore. Like, I miss Upper Deck Exquisite basketball and Topps Chrome and like products that we don't get now. I mean, all the companies do things very well, but I definitely, that would probably be my answer. That's a wonderful answer. Yeah, the exclusivity, man, that's gotta go.
Yeah, and I'm with you, man. Like in hockey, we have Upper Deck, which I think we're very fortunate in hockey because, in my personal opinion, I think Upper Deck makes the nicest cards. I like their designs and their graphics more than any other company. Although Panini, when they were in hockey, they made some exceptional. They did National Treasures in hockey. It's one of the best products ever made in hockey. Topps Heritage would be great to see that again. Love Topps Heritage back when we had it in hockey in the early 2000s for a 3 or 4 year run. Beautiful cards, cool parallels, chromiums, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it would be nice to see that. Certainly be nice to see that. I've been cautioned by people to say, be careful what you wish for, because if that happens, we don't know exactly what it would look like. Other things, there may be some negative aspects to it, but I think generally, if you just think about the way the world works and economics, competition drives innovation, competition drives evolution, and I think
quality control.
Quality control, did you say?
Yeah, quality control. Like, if one company is the only company that makes a particular sport, you don't have an alternative. Like, are you going to stop buying hockey cards because Upper Deck makes cards that are really, really like have bad quality control issues? No, probably not. You're just going to kind of live with it, right? Like, if you want hockey cards, this is the option for hockey cards. If every company can make hockey cards, I just think, it forces you to basically make better stuff. If you have other options and one company is not doing well, you'll explore the other options.
Yeah.
There is no other option.
Quality control is a tough one for me because, both, I can't speak to Topps, but Upper Deck and Panini both outsource their printing of cards, and they outsource them. I know Upper Deck has a couple of different businesses or vendors that they use, but Panini and Upper Deck share one of the biggest ones so they're being printed by the same business. The same company prints Upper Deck cards and Panini cards, and I think they have to fight for press time with that vendor. So I always wonder, is quality control is it Upper Deck or is it their vendor? And I know as a consumer, you don't care. It's Upper Deck. It's they're the one whose name is on it, so they need to attend to that better than they maybe are. But I don't know that increased competition is going to change that because of the printing vendors that they're sharing anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah. But then it depends too. You're going to have a difference between hand packed products and machine packed products. And, especially cards that are on card autographed. I mean, just because, Zion drops a card, sends it back to Upper Deck with a ding corner, is Upper Deck supposed to not pack that out because the player dropped it? Now they have one less case hit. That hurts their revenues. Or should they go back and remake it? As a lot of people have said, well, you don't just make one card at a time, right? You do a whole sheet. And
yep.
So there's and then you need the press time. You need the press time at the vendor to do it. You may not have the ability to remake the cards even. So there's a lot of moving parts that a lot of the hobby just doesn't have complete information on.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for letting me rant on that. Okay, guys. Well, listen, I always appreciate the outgoing comments, so I'm just going to run through some of them here. I do not think there will be major interest in fractional. Fair. We're all, fair to not think that. I think there will be. But time will tell. Time will tell. I came into sports cards. I was a big daily fantasy player. Yeah, welcome to the hobby, AO. I like my daily fantasy too, so welcome. Rodman, one of the best guys in the hobby. Great show. Ryan is a cool kid. See you guys at the next trade. And yes, we will for sure, my man.
Can't wait.
That's it. That's why Star Stock became so popular. I'm not too familiar with Star Stock yet, but I plan to get there. Awesome. Thanks for the comment, Matt. I'm just trying to skip a bunch of these kind of comments that are you guys talking to each other. Legion, always appreciate your viewership, my man. Thank you so much. Great show. Thank you, Name. Great to have you. Dave, great to have you. Thanks for coming by. Mike, thank you. Hit the thumbs up button, guys. I appreciate that. Rodman says, would you limit each company to a certain amount of products? The problem there, Rodman, is that the companies need to print enough products to pay their overhead, pay their staff, and keep the lights turned on. And that's where when people come up, Ryan, I'm sure you've heard the solution, hand out 4 licenses, each company gets to do 6 products. The problem with that is that none of these companies can survive on 6 products a year. It's just not the way the business works anymore. That worked in the 80s and the 90s. It doesn't work anymore, unfortunately. Terry, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Mike, Kobe, RIP. Ryan, how about when you pulled that Kobe auto from that box with his number on it? That was sick. Good memories there. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. Dex says, Ryan, I'm the guy that asked you if you were interested in my Michael Thomas National Treasures RPA. There you go. Welcome to the show, Dex. I cannot believe they send cards to players to get signed. There will never be pristine card autos. That's what the hobby has come to, Mr. LAGN.
They would typically do signings at like rookie premieres where they could, like a Panini rep could sit with Joe Burrow and have him sign autographs on card. COVID changed that. There wasn't a rookie premiere this year. So there typically are those kind of events. And I also know that like reps will go to players for signings. Like, if Kevin Durant needs to sign autographs, they're not like, he's not, they're not always mailing them to him and then mailing them back. They will meet up with, players for signings and stuff like that. So a lot of it is done, in an environment where someone can assist them and not just them chucking them into a box and saying, here you go, here you go, stuff like that.
Yeah, 100% correct. And, I've even heard stories that Upper Deck they've actually traveled to Russia in a particular instance to get a certain player's autograph. So they will do that. But what you said about their showcase applies to rookie cards 100%, but veteran cards, they will literally take a 400 count box, stuff it with cards and ship it to the player to be autographed, and the player will ship it back. And that just happens, and it happens a lot. And players, sure. I mean, I've had cards that have, runoff ink marks on the back of the card because the player or the edge, or, you see that, you see dings, these players don't understand. Not all of them understand how important the condition is. If you want a gem mint card, there can't be anything. There should be almost nothing wrong with it. So, if they don't get it as much, I can see them holding cards, the surfaces rubbing against each other, putting them on the table, not being too concerned about them. So that's unfortunate, but it's part of the business. And we as a hobby demand on card autographs. We want them so bad. So you got to take the bad with the good in that case. Mm-hmm. Paul, thank you so much. Yam, always great to have you. Card Insight says everyone should share this episode. More people need to see it. Great show, guys. I appreciate that, Card. Thank you so much. Peter, great show, guys. Do send card collector hoodies to Canada. Do you send card collector hoodies to Canada? There you go. Demand for your brand up here, Ryan. I love it.
Appreciate that.
Simon would still rather a beat up on card auto opposed to sticker auto. I hear you on that. Depends. But it depends. Are you looking for graded, non-graded, each to their own? Or Giannis, if you will keep honest, keep a few, we may. Okay. Oh, so they meet up with Luca's mom for signings. Funny. Andy, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Adam, really appreciate. Guys, got to the end of the comments for the first time tonight. I want to, Ryan, I'm going to let you go, man. It's been 2.5 hours, so I'm going to let you go, buddy. Thank you, Ryan, so much for joining me tonight. I greatly appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining the audience. I do appreciate it. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. My Twitter, my Instagram are on the ticker right now. Please follow. Please subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. They're going to keep coming on December for episodes right now, so we're not slowing down. I'm going to throw up Ryan's Twitter and Instagram right there. And Ryan's YouTube channel is also by the same name, Card Collector 2. Ryan, before you go, tell us what happened to Card Collector 1, and then we're going to sign off.
2 is my lucky number. When I was growing up, Blowout was Card Collector for me, and when I switched to Instagram, Card Collector wasn't available, so it just went to Card Collector 2 because that was my lucky number, and I get asked it all the time. But yeah, just Card Collector 2. That was, again, my number, and Card Collector, that's how it works.
It made sense. All right, very awesome, Ryan. All right, Dave Hart, thank you so much. Dustin, always great to see you, my friend. Great show. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that, Dustin. All right, Ryan, we're going to sign off. Ryan, if you don't mind waiting right there for a minute, we're going to hit end broadcast. Good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. Have a great night.